'Tis a day. 'Tis a day, my friends, and welcome to this open mic podcast for today. Yes, hello everyone. Today I bring grim news. Not surprising news. I want to make that clear. If anyone was surprised by this, quite frankly, you're naive. Naive or stupid. You can pick one of the two. But if you're not surprised by this, I will say this. If you're surprised by this in the same way I was, simply by the sheer suddenness of it, I get that. But the actual substance of the news being that GW is completely eradicating Firstborn Marines, we all saw this coming. Okay? Like, this is nothing new. This is nothing, so it shouldn't be surprising. This is nothing groundbreaking. We all knew this was coming. It's finally here. The only thing I'm surprised about is just how fast it happened. Like, it's kind of ridiculous. But before we get into the actual open mic and letting you guys voice your thoughts and your feelings about this, whether you care, whether you're not really that affected by it, you're just like, well, if I want to play Firstborn, I'll play whatever they release for, Horus Heresy. That's kind of where I'm trying to be mindset-wise. Though I can't lie and say this doesn't upset me a little bit. It is annoying and does piss me off, but again, I'm not surprised it's happening. Welcome, Chaplain. I almost say Chaplain. Karn of the Car. I almost called you a chaplain. How mad would you have been, Karn, if I had called you a chaplain? I'm only surprised that it didn't happen sooner. Yeah, that is like the big surprise with this news, is that it took so long. Like, we all knew that they were planning on replacing the Firstborn Marines with Primaris as soon as Primaris were announced. Nobody had I would say, too much of a deviation from that thought. Even the people who liked Primaris pretty much admitted that. Like, it's always been accepted that at some point the Primaris are going to be the bog standard Marine that you could purchase and assemble and paint and all that stuff, and that the Firstborn Marines would be sift out. But for a long time, we actually haven't had them sift out. Welcome, Reyes or Reyes. I called it, and to be openly petty, I told y'all this would happen. I wouldn't consider it petty. Like, I would get it if you were saying that to someone like Valric, who I think in the past has actually straight up said that this isn't going to happen. But Reyes, you and me are in the same. Like, I always knew this was going to happen. I never denied this was going to happen. So it's not being petty to me. I agree with you. So maybe to some of the other people in chat, maybe some other people out there who weren't expecting this to happen. And again, if you're amongst that number, I personally think anybody who thought that this wasn't going to happen were either stupid or naive. And I'm not going to be nice about it. You were either stupid or naive. One of the two. Pick one. But you can't have not been one of them. Like, straight up. I will be a dick about this. So yeah, Firstborn Marines are getting sifted out. And for those who might not be in the know, this might be your initial finding out about this. I have the articles pulled up right here. Now, before I get into this article, I'm not going to read the whole thing, because quite frankly, it's bullshit. The whole thing's bullshit, but there's a segment of it I want to read, and then we'll actually go down the list of what's being banned, and then we're going to get into the open mic where you guys can come on, and I will provide the link. Hold on, I actually didn't update the description one, so let me do that real quick. But, yeah, hold on. It's like the one thing I forgot to do. I always forget to do at least like one thing for these streams, and this would be it. Right. New link, copy, and I will go to the stream description. Alright, so it's going to be in the stream description for the whole stream. And I'll share it quickly in chat a couple times. That's the link to the call line Discord where the open mics will open up. Please sort yourselves in waiting room 1, 2, 3. I'll be pulling the next person into the call from call room 1. Once I pull that person in, the person who's in waiting call 2 jump into 1, and so on and so forth, subsequent order. So that would be for the open mic. But before we get into the open mic, I do want to address this article that they actually did the announcement aspect of this. I'm not sure what to call it. I'm going to call it the culling of Firstborn Marines, because I don't know how to describe it. But before we do y'all remember this little article? It came out in May, just a few months ago. I did a video on it and an open mic on it, I'm pretty sure. Warhammer 40,000 and Forge World Legends to be last chance to buy, and they announced that they were basically killing off box dreads the Stern Guard veterans, which are now being replaced with Primaris equivalents, and the original Space Marine Terminators, which I really didn't mind. Like, I'm okay with the replacements that we're getting for that. But, yes. Remember what they said here? I want to read something that they said. Just back in May. Just back in May. Of this year. Importantly, and despite what heretical elements in the news sphere might be claiming otherwise, the humble tactical squads, as well as many other classic kits, are not being retired. In the new edition of Warhammer 40,000, you will still be able to play a Space Marines army without deploying so much as a single Primaris Marine, which was, by the way, that line right there was a lie in this article on its own, because guess what? You wanted to play Stern Guard veterans after this announcement, you would have to play Primaris, so that's a fucking lie. It was a lie within the article it was part of. Now, it's even worse, because of this part. The humble tactical squads, which is true. The tactical squads, that's still true. See, we didn't lie to you, our faithful members of the Imperium. For you see, the tactical squads are indeed still purchasable. It's just everything else that's firstborn that you can no longer get. I'm not even joking right now, by the way. Literally, or quite frankly, everything else Firstborn Marine-wise that's worth picking up to formulate a Firstborn Marine Space Marine army for Warhammer 40,000 has been nuked. The one thing that they didn't nuke was the tactical squads. And I part of me is just kind of like, is it because they didn't want to be called out on this article? Like that's like the one thing I'm trying, like, I'm rubbing my temples about. It's like, do you think not getting rid of the tactical squads somehow means that the rest of this isn't absolute bullshit? I mean, you put in parentheses, as well as many other classic kits. Really? Many other kits are not being touched. Really? Kiss my ass. We're going to jump right to the bottom. So, when they say many other kits are not being sifted out, clearly they don't consider attack bikes, bike squad, scout bike squad, land speeder storm, stalker, and hunters, ironclad dreadnoughts, which, by the way, was the one dreadnought box set that they said they weren't getting rid of. Guess what? They're getting rid of it now. I'm going to hold on to this for like 10 years and then sell it for a fortune. But ironclad dreadnoughts, which, quite frankly, this just comes off to me like when they announced they were getting rid of every other dreadnought. Or box dreadnought that everybody liked. It feels like to me that they just forgot about the ironclad, and they're like, oh shit, we nuked every other box dreadnought. Well, might as well get rid of the ironclad too. Fuck, I'm not gonna lie. Like I said, I am pissed. Not surprised, but I'm pissed. Assault squads, which is the big, like, it's huge. Because when it comes to any army you formulate in this game, as well as war games as a whole, what is the foundation of every army you will play in any war game? It's your infantry, your baseline units. And for Space Marines, that is the tactical squad, and that is the assault squads. Those are your basic bog standard unit from which all armies are formulated around. And from there, you do vehicles, you do dreads, you do everything else. But your baseline units are going to be tactical squads and assault squads. They formulate your baseline ranged infantry and your baseline melee infantry. And they just nuked the baseline melee infantry. So you absolutely cannot make a Firstborn Marine army anymore if you don't already have assault squads or you haven't bought their last chance to buy sets. You now have to play Primaris on some level if you're a brand new player. If you want to play Space Marines. Company Command. Scouts. Of course. If they're going to get rid of the scout, like, bike squads, of course, getting rid of normal scouts. Scouts with sniper rifles. Librarians. Tech Marines with servitors, and the Thunderfire Cannon. And apparently, I've heard whispers that there's other stuff that's not even on this article that they're getting rid of too, but they haven't officially announced it yet. But this is the official announcement. They've gotten rid of attack bikes, bike squad, scout bike squad, land speeder storm, stalker/hunters, ironclad dreadnoughts, assault squads, command squads, scouts with sniper rifles, librarians, and Tech Marines with Servitors, and the Thunderfire Cannon. They've absolutely bungled up the asshole the entirety of Firstborn Marines. You cannot play Firstborn no more. Not unless you already have them, or you have a 3D printer. Because quite frankly, like the one part, like the biggest solace for me, and what keeps me from being in an outright rage, is I have a 3D printer. And I know people are going to scan the models and stuff and put them up for STLs. And I have absolutely no qualm if people pick them up. In fact, I encourage it. If you can find any of these in STL form, get them. Get them. Because the company's not making them. Like, at this point, the people who are anti, like, STL, 3D printing, and all that stuff for, like, this sphere, how can you be mad at anybody picking up an STL of any of these things? They don't exist. Like, it's not like GW is putting them on a basis of made to order, which I think they should have done. And credit to Nathan X2000, a buddy of mine. He pointed that out too. Like, why nuke the range? Why say you're stop producing them, and you're no longer going to be supporting them? But then at the same, like, why not at least sell them in a made to order fashion? Instead of just making them for, like, sets and stores and stuff like that, now just put it on a basis of, all right, every time we get someone directly requesting one, we will then, you know, like, they have the molds. Like, you have the molds, GW. Why are you nuking them? It's so stupid. But yeah, that's... And I just want to do it one more time. This was an article back in May where they got rid of most of the box dreads, the Stern Guard veterans, and the original Space Marine Terminators, which, again, the Terminators I don't really mind. Everything else I do. They also got rid of a shit ton of stuff from the expanded stuff. Like, they've gotten rid of a lot lately. But, yeah, in this article, they said, importantly, and despite what heretical elements in the newsphere, blah, 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 the humble tactical squads, as well as many other classic kits, are not being retired. They stressed the not. They italicized it. They made an effort to stress not being retired. I'm at this point where the question I have is, what of the Firstborn range didn't you retire? What of the classic kits haven't you retired with this article? So not only was this article already a lie in and of itself when they said you can play a Firstborn Marine army in its entirety without fielding a single Primaris, except within the article itself, if you wanted to play Stern Guard veterans, yes you do. If you want to play Stern Guard veterans and you didn't buy up one of the last sets that they were offering for the Stern Guard veterans, and you still wanted to field them for your Space Marine army, guess what? You'd have to use Primaris. So that's a lie. If you want to play Stern Guard veterans, you do have to use Primaris. So that was already a lie within its own article. But now the whole bit right here is a fucking lie, because you said, "Oh, we're not going to be doing this wide range of retiring of kids." But by the way, retiring is bullshit. You're not retiring. Retiring sounds nice. No, you're ceasing to sell. You are nuking the range. And what's worse is you're now no longer going to continue supporting their data sheets and their rule sets and stuff. You're putting them into legends, which means people won't be able to play them at tournaments. Well, official tournaments, anyway. So, that aged like fucking milk. So, yeah. I just want to say my piece on that. I'm going to go, yeah. Just to get kind of like summarize my thoughts, and then I'm opening the floor to you guys, of course, for the open mic. I'm pissed. I'm annoyed. Like most people, some of them, like, I would say my first units that I got in Warhammer were orcs, but my second army I ever got, and I was getting it at the same time I was getting my orcs, I'd say like the third box set I ever bought was the one of the Star Collecting boxes for Space Marines. And it included a lot of the things that they've now just nuked. Had a lot of scouts in it, but... yeah, this fucking sucks. Anywho, Anyway, I'm going to share the link in the chat again, and then I'm going to pull in my first person. And I welcome everybody to come on the show. Again, put yourselves in waiting call room 1, 2, or 3, and I'll pull you into the hidden call line chat. And one-on-one, you can, voice your thoughts on this particular ditty. Before I pull in Ludus, who is currently waiting, let me just zip through. Typical, no other IP has been respected. Welcome Mephisto X, Gilly Guy, Firstborn have history that the Primaris will never have. I agree, and we just lost it. Ludus said earlier, and I'll pull him in. We're gonna have a conversation. We didn't lie. We just didn't tell the whole truth. Yeah, they lied. I get what you mean, but I get what you're pointing out. Kill the past and destroy it if you have to. Oh, I still hate that line from. That's a Star Wars. I believe that was The Last Jedi. Yeah, that was Last Jedi reference. That Jedi is now worthless. Please. Bike scouts, land speeders, or something I have seen in literally every Space Marine army I've ever seen. Yep. And I think there's Primaris equivalents of most of them, if not all of them. DRMR Wade said, and they're only keeping the tactical squad for now because it's one of the best sellers. Yeah, that, and again, it kind of comes off like they're trying to pretend they didn't lie in that previous article I just pulled up, when, again, they straight up fucking did. Alright, Jacob Hedderstrom said, so now the only Space Marines that you could properly qualify as Firstborn is some Chaos Marines. Yep. Actually, yep, you're dead on that. Alright, so now, open mic has officially begun. I'm gonna pull in my first caller. Hey man, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Alright, so what's your take with the Firstborn Marines getting eradicated?
I didn't know that was a Star Wars reference, but I kind of agree with kill the past, destroy it if you have to. That seems like a lot of what they're doing on, because they absolutely know that whatever they do with Primaris, they will never be able to compete with the lore from like the Horus Heresy on, when Space Marines became almost a necessity for the lore. And from then to when Primaris were created, there's no way that Primaris would even remotely be able to compete with the energy that they gave off. Like,
I agree.
Just taking for example, you got the Horus Heresy, you got the Badab conflict, you got the Space Marines coming in and saving the fucking Death Corps of Krieg in the Siege of Rax. So, like, they were just sitting there, like, they were doing as all good Kriegsmen doing, beating themselves up against the wall. But then the Red Scorpions and the Inquisition came in and, like, oh, okay, we will crack this nut. Like, at some point I would say 90 to 95% of the lore in 30 to 40K has required Space Marines at some point. The Firstborn, if you will. No. But, yeah. But it's required the Space Marines at some point. And now that they're pushing away from that and going to Primaris, no one's interested in them because they're A, not as cool, and B, don't have the lore behind them. I mean, let's take one Legion, for example, because I could go on a whole rant about this. But the Blood Angels, one that I know very little about. The Murder Arachnids.
The Murder Arachnids?
What? The the Arachnids on the planet Murder. I forgot what they were actually called. But the things that weren't Tyranids, but were like, we're going to fill out this type of creature. Yeah, I recall what you're talking about now. Okay, I was trying to... And it ended up becoming, I think it ended up becoming the Tyranids, in all honesty. Because the way they describe it sounds too much like Tyranids. But, so...
I always interpreted them to be like a subspecies of them that pre-existed in the galaxy, or like a distant cousin.
I mean, I can agree with that lore-wise, but I think writer-wise, they didn't really have the Tyranids yet. So they wanted to put something in, like the Tyranids, like the Zerg, stuff like that, and see how it would play into their lore. And then that, from the writing perspective, just ended up becoming Tyranids as opposed to lore-wise. It probably is like a subspecies of Tyranid.
Right.
Does that make more sense?
Yes.
So, but take that story alone. You had the Blood Angels who were like, nah, you humans can't handle it. We can handle it. And tripped their forces onto the planet and did like a Death Core of Krieg move, honestly. They fed so little troops that they just kept getting killed. And one of the most impactful scenes is where Saul Tarvitz is handed a crimson piece of glass, and he recognizes it as one of the eye visors from a Blood Angel's helmet. And he's like, oh, this is bad. Like, how often to that point have you seen Space Marines get, for lack of a better word, scared?
Very rarely. Typically, it's only when they face, like, the absolute worst horrors of the warp.
This is, they don't know what the enemy is, and all they really know is, well, we've been getting absolutely stomped at this point. All we're finding is a visor? We're screwed, guys. What do you mean we're screwed? I mean, we're screwed. If we make it out of here, it'll be a miracle. And that miracle ended up coming by way of the Luna Wolves. But how are you going to have a story like that with the Primaris without directly ripping that off?
The thing is, I could see them... Well, I can't. But not because the ability doesn't exist to write compelling stories with Primaris. It's just I just don't think there were any of the writers, which like the Horus Heresy series alone has like 58 writers, 59 writers who worked on the series as a whole. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
it's also like 70 books now, so
yeah. With the entirety of Black Library, I can't think of a single writer I think could write a compelling story surrounding like a Primaris unit or Primaris character. It's just there.
Here's my problem with it. I think I kind of miscommunicated because you're saying something similar to what I said without saying, like, I don't think they can't write it. I think the issue they're going to have is the Firstborn, God, I hate saying that, have already done it and done it probably to a better ability. I'm not saying Primaris can't be compelling. They're just going to have to repeat themselves, and people are going to hate that.
And they already hate them. And yeah, I agree. I agree with the core of your point. It's just it's.
Sorry, I think I miscommunicated it.
No, that's fine. Yeah, like story wise, I definitely. And there's a reason they're bringing back the Primarchs, right? It's because no one cares about what's going on with the Primaris over the Firstborn Marines. All of the best stories that have continued throughout the writings of Black Library have been around the Space Marines, yes, but not Primaris. It's always been about characters who were Firstborn first that we always found compelling and enjoyable. Like, if you look at the favorited characters amongst the Space Marine cast, name one that was from the get-go of Primaris. Not got turned into one by crossing the Rubicon. That started out as a Primaris, that is a Primaris now, that's loved by the community. You can't name one. I can't think of a single named one at all. I can only think of the characters they arbitrarily forced into becoming Primaris. Like
I can come up with a compelling story around the Primaris that will probably never happen, and that if they do it, it will be trash. But it has potential. But it would require to bring back 2 more Primarchs. Specifically, 2 more Primarchs.
Visto X says, story-wise, does all of this really matter?
Yes.
Well, especially when it comes to talking with Ludus. Ludus is mainly a lore guy, so for him, like, the impact is far more in regards to the implications of the lore. obviously with other
they're
folks,
taking out. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Obviously, with other folks that are going to be coming in, we're going to be talking more about the models and like the sentimentality behind the original Marines that we've all been collecting for years that we now no longer can. The dislike of Primaris, both from a design perspective, that's going to be a regular conversation. But that's why I value Ludus so much in this conversation. Is his focus is more lensed towards the story implications that it'll happen in the lore later on.
But here's my idea, and let me know what you think. Because let me know if this doesn't. Okay, if this doesn't sound like a cool concept, but if they do it, they're going to screw it up completely. The Lion's already come back. Sees Rebute Primaris and says, "Oh no, we're not doing this." Then, at roughly the same time, within the span of, I would say, 500 to 1,000 years, they bring back, and I can't believe I'm saying this, and Asmo knows how much I hate this idea. They bring back Dorn, and they bring back the Khan. And Dorn sides with the Lion, and the Khan sides with Gilliman, just like they did at the second founding. And it turns into essentially another Horus heresy between Firstborn and Primaris Marines. Like, that would actually be cool. It would essentially actually be like, it wouldn't be Horus heresy. It'd be more like Badab War on steroids, because it'd be loyalists versus loyalists at first. And it would essentially be the Khan, as much as I hate the idea of him siding with the big fat fucking blueberry, he did side with him with the Codex Astartes. So you would have your essentially your pro Primaris with those two, and then with the Lion and with Dorn, you'd have your anti Primaris. That would be an interesting concept. It just couldn't be done right, at least not the way they're going right now.
I definitely like the idea of Dorn coming back and the Khan coming back. Another Civil War that kind of goes back to what you said before, though, about them just repeating old notes.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, but that's the only way you can make the Primaris remotely relevant compared to Firstborn, as far as the lore perspective. To me, like you're going to have to pit them against each other at some point, and really the only way you're going to do that outside of another Civil War is versus Chaos, because they technically, until further notice, give it by the end of the year, cannot have Primaris until Fabius Bile does something. But I mean,
oh, hold on. Mephisto X is further espousing on it, is what he's trying to say. As a player of Warhammer 40k, you have the power to decide, don't you? And he also said, if there are storylines dictated to you by the GW, you mean by GW, then as a GM, you have the power to either embrace it or ignore it in your own way. This isn't D&D.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have a question. Is he referring to the tabletop?
I'm very confused by your use of GM in this case, my friend.
It sounds like he is referring to the tabletop pen and papers.
Maybe? Like, are you referring to the pen and paper? Because we're talking... Well, right now we're talking about the lore as a whole, but... Mainly, in terms of the actual the tabletop games, I'm more concerned with the war game. I don't even play the RPG.
Which also, to be fair, Mephisto, I'm going to take this with a massive grain of salt and assume that that's what he's talking about is the pen and papers. If that is the case, you're absolutely right. I made a big no-no when I actually DM'd a Deathwatch game, and I got pushed to a corner and felt like I needed to put Ludus Infinium as a persona in there because I kind of GM'd myself into a corner. And it kind of broke the game a little bit to the point where it just wasn't fun for anyone anymore. But at the same time, it was also... I had a Deathwatch squad that was headed by an Inquisitor, and their first thing was, we're going to kill the Inquisitor. I'm like, okay, I can't stop the players. Okay, that's okay what you do. And they shot him out in airlock. So, yeah. I mean, you're right. It is ultimately up to the player in that sense, or as far as the lore. For me, I focus on 30K, so yeah, I can focus on the area of lore I want to be a part of. But like as I just said, as far as the actual wargaming, in this sense, it's going to have a deeper impact because those units are no longer going to be available outside of STLs, and they're not going to be available in tournament. But my worry about it is what it. I think mine was the Streamlabs OBS.
Alright, so I tried completely restarting OBS and reconnecting. Let's see if it works.
Alright, refreshing stream. And I got an ad.
Alright, how's it look, guys? Did it reconnect?
It's looking like it did. Yeah, everyone's saying reconnected.
Okay. Let's hope it stays that way. Again, it had to have been YouTube's end. Maybe there was a feedback connection that happens on a rare occasion, which usually means that the ingest server tries to send some kind of information to my streaming software, and the streaming software has a hard time processing it, and for some reason it impacts the actual connection. If that's the case, then it was YouTube's end that caused the issue, but it wasn't because their connection or their servers were actually faulty. It's a mechanism of their servers that causes a feedback. If that is the case. I mean, it's connecting fine just now, so that's what that tells me. Because again, my connection was perfectly fine from my end. My end was not the issue. But anyway, back on topic and kind of circling back. Okay, so back to what Mephisto was saying. So, the Warhammer 40k universe is ultimately controlled by you, the player. I would disagree.
He did clarify. He was talking about the OG Rogue Trader game. Okay. So he was talking about the pen and paper.
So, yeah, that's not what we're talking about in terms of, like, its lore impact. I agree with you with all pen and papers. Like, the settings that they're based in, you know, you don't have to stick to them with, like, really closely. In fact, I would suggest that you don't if you want to make a satisfying pen and paper RPG experience. But speaking of what I care about, which for me, what I'm focusing on, what I actually care about and all that, is the tabletop war game. The war game of Warhammer 40,000. My big, giant, fuck-off army of orcs, you know, my Leviathan dreadnoughts, my big fuck-off Imperial Knights shooting off their Gatling guns. You know, the fucking tabletop filled with an army. That's what I care about. And thus, I care about the miniatures I'm able to collect and play in a competitive experience. Like, that's what I'm talking about towards the tabletop.
And from my end, I don't know if this carried through because this was going through all that lag. I made the point of, for the tabletop, that's what's going to have the most impact right now. But for the lore, or for the wargaming, that's what's going to have the most impact. For the pen and paper and the lore, it's going to be kind of like a ripple in a pond. Because it's going to eventually hit there where they're taking out Firstborn. But if you already have the rule books for Firstborn, for instance, I have the Death Watch, so it's supplemental material, so I have stuff for all the original legions and some of the successor chapters, especially the Bloody Magpies. But you know, you're absolutely right as far as pen and paper. Stick to what you enjoy, and again, for me, someone who's in the lore, is the same thing. I stick to 30k lore because I love the Horse Heresy. I love watching the turmoil in the legions when they start to turn traitor or having to fight against the traitors. So you're right in that sense, but when it, like we've said, when it comes to the wargaming, it's not quite as cut and dry.
Yeah, and that's kind of the like the crux of the issue we're discussing.
Yeah,
discussing, fucking words. All right, so Ludus, thank you for coming on, man. I'm gonna pull in Karn as the next caller. And sorry for all the
and I will go keep
issues we had.
No. Don't apologize, man. Not your fault.
Right, thank you.
Yep.
Welcome, Lord Metal Man. How you doing, brother? All right, pulling in Karn. Karn, Sorry for all the connection issues we had just had, but so what's your take with the Firstborn Marines being completely nuked out of the range?
Like I said, that's not a surprise. It was just
Right.
a question of time because they want to have a new clean slate with the Primaris because they have the original Space Marines have way too much lore.
Yeah, and
And
I would say just to cut you in a little bit here. I'd
it's fine.
say it like the bringing up that it isn't a surprise is kind of pointless. And no offense, but it's like this should the only people that this quote unquote surprises are either people who are straight up stupid. And I'm gonna be mean. I'm gonna be a dick about it. If you believed that
No,
this
it's
was
fine.
never gonna happen, you were stupid or naive. One of the two. One kind of bleeds into the other. So that's as mean as it might sound, as much of a middle finger it might be to some people who genuinely believe. I mean it. Like you
It's a
had to
well-deserved
have,
middle finger.
yeah, you had to have just not thought about it. So yeah, for me that's not even a factor about like the surprise. The only surprise that should come from this is how sudden it was, because we went from just having the box dreads just a couple months ago sifted out, and then all of a sudden, basically the rest of the fucking range. Like
No,
everything.
easy, because people weren't pissed off enough, so they thought to themselves, "Well, why not?" They did not bitch enough during the box dreadnought. They are not going to bitch now, and 100% they are not going to bitch. They're instead
Mephisto.
going to buy another box set of Primaris Marines.
Mephisto asks, "May I ask why the Firstborn Marines have been nuked?" Money.
Because they want to replace them with the Primaris line.
Yeah. Well, that's just it. But the core of it, past that, like, why do they want to replace it? Money. Like the Primaris sell, and they're the new shiny model, and they also cost more. Because they're the new shiny models, they have the new, more complicated designs, etc., etc. Plus, I think the way they've designed them, they're more easily mass-produced. So
They are very
the
Age of
very
Sigmar.
the very core of it, money. They make more and cost less with Primaris. They make less and cost more with the Firstborn Marines.
And also with a bigger model, you don't have so many small pieces that can go that you can fuck up during a printing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my apologies. And like I said, it also comes with the bonus that the Primaris don't have as much backstory. They have 100% stuff about the Firstborn that they don't like in the lore. Like, there cannot be any female Space Marines. That was only mentioned by the Space Marines, never mentioned for the Primaris. I would not be surprised if Mr. I can make better Space Marines than the Emperor finds a way to do it for women. I wouldn't be surprised.
I am waiting for that announcement any day now. I mean, I'm surprised GW have reiterated in several recent like codexes and books the gender part of like how only men can be Space Marines. They've reiterated that a couple times, but I'm a bit of a doomer when it comes to this. But I'm just waiting for them to finally.
I'm just saying
correct.
they only said Space Marines, never Primaris Marines.
I've been taking it as it's one and the same.
I am very anal about the way things are written, which might be a detriment, but that's always kind of my perspective.
Mephisto
Because they usually like to have they love to differentiate between actual Space Marines and Primaris on everything.
and that is a fair point. They have been doing the separation.
Like, they are very clear about separating them on those angles. So
Haven't they?
why
Aren't
not
they
also
always?
say that?
Haven't they been at least in ninth? Haven't they been separated by keywords as well?
Yeah, 100%. They got different skill sets and rulings.
Yeah,
You cannot have a standard Space Marine inside of a squad of Primaris Space Marine.
that is a fair point.
And I also think the tacticals are going to be renamed. They are not going to be a tactical squad in the future. They are going to be a firstborn squad. That's why they get rid of everything else. They're going to be a special elite maybe not even really elite unit. Maybe they turn them into cannon fodder. Who knows?
I don't know if I'll agree they'll rename them. I think they'll leave them. I agree that they're only holding on to them because they're selling.
I think they renamed them because in the card game, the only firstborn Marine card is the firstborn sword. There is no other type of firstborn.
Again, I'm skeptical on that one. I'll concede if they do it, of course, but
Yeah.
for now, I'm not gonna run with that.
It's just something I believe they're going to do 100%. Like, they're not going to differentiate anymore between the Space Marine army and the Primaris army. The firstborn are just going to be a tech option.
Yeah.
Also, I'm just waiting for them to really reset the universe. That's going to happen soon. Like, Korn is on a fucking victory stroll.
I will say this: if that does happen, I will not be a fan of 40k anymore. Like, I'm as it is. I'm holding on to Horus Heresy to dear life, even though that game is pretty much dead because they still haven't made assault squads. And like I said earlier, and when I was showing off the actual article announcing this culling of the Firstborn Marines, with them getting rid of assault squads of Firstborn Marines, that's it. Like, they've killed them. Like, doesn't matter if they never get rid of tactical squads. If you kill one of the two core foundations of any army, which are their infantry, whether that be ranged infantry or melee infantry, you knock down one, that's half the foundation. It's dead. They got rid of assault squads. Now, we do have hope for Firstborn Marines, of course. Now, this is something to bring up, and I haven't mentioned it till now, but it is important to bring up. With the Horus Heresy tabletop, not 40k, but the Horus Heresy tabletop, all the Marines in that are Firstborn, obviously. So, Firstborn are nuked in the sense of 40k. That is what I'm stressing and talking about, and of course, that's what we're talking about today. And obviously, the original line that we all have been collecting for years and have been painting and stuff like that, those are being gone. The sentimentality of that, that's also important to bring up and stress. But it's not all doom and gloom. With the Horus Heresy tabletop, they will be remaking the Firstborn Marines there. It won't be the same. It's not going to be the same model design. It's not going to have that classic vibe to it.
Yeah, you're going to lose the religious zealotry. Yeah. You are also going to lose all the chapters.
Well, of course, yeah. That is something to...
So they are going to be bland as fuck. Because, like, you can see it, they don't even give the Imperial Fist any personality.
They don't really give
Basically,
any of the... If you're talking about the model designs, they don't give the design of the model any personality. No, they're baseline.
No, also generally, like, with some of the 30k stuff now, visually there's mostly, like, very little personality. It's just an absolute shame. Like, if it's not, like, a Chaos guy, he's not going to have personality. And even the Chaos guys, like, the Black Legion became so vanilla.
Yeah,
and even the...
When it comes to, like, the model discussion, though, like, I will say this, like... This is something I need to stress to everybody. Get a 3D printer. Like,
yes.
Get a 3D printer. I'm sorry, but if you're in the hobby of tabletop minis and you actually get enjoyment out of collecting and painting and assembling at all, get a 3D printer. Because that's how, if you get the right STL files and for everything, no one can ever take away something like this from you. If you're reliant on the companies to produce these things, and if they do what GW is currently doing to the Firstborn line, when they cull them and they're no longer producing them, you cannot. You're screwed. You can't do anything with them. But if you have a 3D printer and you get an STL, they can't take that away from you.
I can also see them like reducing the Firstborns, the Space Marines so much that the only way to get Assault Space Marines is to like buy the extra bits and pieces and just glue them on your regular tactical squad.
Yeah.
And then they're saying, they're going to say something like, "Oh, the firstborn Marines are the first modular troop type that you can change its equipment mid-battle."
3D printer
Yeah.
quicksand. Sand. I mean, whatever works, whatever allows you to like replicate them. Yeah.
Yeah, do your thing, because GW sure as hell won't.
Yeah. Do you have a
Like
3D printer,
if it-
Karn?
Me? No. I don't have space for that. I'm more of a lore guy, you know that. And the
know.
video games.
Yeah. Oh. Thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate being here. So, going to make space for the next guy.
That's Karn for you, folks. I love him to death. I do. Having Karn on is always good. He has a very similar take to me, though. Very doomer about it. Very... Yeah, again, this whole thing just kind of sucks. It's just those original sculpts, those old school... Well, obviously, like, the most original ones have already been retired, but... But, I don't know. We've had... At least in some capacity, though, we've always had... Okay, look. I think the thing that really separates this from... like the updated designs over the years of the Firstborn Marines, like the original like Rogue Trader sculpts, which look terrible. Then those got updated over the years. I think what makes this actually feel shitty compared to an update, a proper update, is they're not updating; they're removing entirely. Like the closest thing to updating we're gonna get for all these Marines they're removing again is in the Horus Heresy tabletop game. That's it. But for 40k itself, the game, and I have no doubt this is going to have lore impact. This is going to have storytelling impact. It's kind of... It's a replacement. It's dead. I don't know. I guess it's just... Maybe it's just I'm wrapping too much of my... Again, my sentimentality or my emotions or how I feel about all this a little too much into... these plastic toys I've been collecting for years and years, been spending hours upon hours upon hours painting. But for me, to get a little mushy, it does feel like the end of an era, but it doesn't feel good. Like, it doesn't feel like we're being, like, anything's being revived in its place. It just feels like a previous generation just got pulled out and shot in the head. And now we're told to accept their replacements. And it sucks. Alright. Alright. Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Alright. So, what do you think of the Firstborn Marines, Candina?
All right. Let's see. Well, first and foremost, it's one of the dumbest things they've ever done. To just outright off the OGs, you know? Like, this is basically up there with the acting of fantasy, essentially.
Yeah. It's close to that for, like... It's very close to that for me. It's not quite
It's not as close...
yet.
Indeed, not as quiet. But as someone who was there for fantasy... and not as much for 40k, I imagine that this is bordering onto being like the acting of fantasy just right off.
The best
this
way,
seems like almost an end of an era.
Yeah, the best way I can put it is this is like the looming death knell. Like this is the hitting of the drums or the toll of the bell sounding off that fall. Like, if there was something like that for fantasy, those hints of the end time, like, this is the end times right before everything's nuked and it's replaced with Age of Sigmar. Like, that's where we are. We're on that line. We're on the edge, where it feels like we're just losing a lot.
Oh yeah, I understand that. That's excuse me, back aching after some very strenuous work. But yeah, this whole thing about them slowly disappearing and now sounds like, I don't know if they're completely gone lore-wise, but we know it's gonna be official that they're just officially gone, replaced with Primera sooner or later, if nothing else.
Yeah, we
Since
knew it
they're
was gonna happen.
since they're not selling OGs anymore. And as I believe you must have said earlier in the stream, it is undoubtable. This was the plan from the get-go when they started to introduce the primaries. They were going to be the replacements. And there was no way they were going to stick with having the firstborns forever after that point. There was just no way.
Yeah. I mean, I think I do feel bad for the people. Like, as much as I'm going to be a dick about this. You were either stupid or naive to think this was never going to happen. But I do feel bad for those people who were stupid and naive to think this would never happen. It's just, it's.
The writing was on the wall, and we can't be blamed for actually having seen it while they didn't.
Kinda, yeah. It's just. I wish a lot of those people who were naive and stupid were right, but it's one of those occasions where it sucks being.
It sucks to be right. Yeah. Just give me 30 seconds.
All right. H of Gilliman, don't do that to me, yokai. Don't do that to me.
All right, I'm back again. I'm back again. Yeah. Yeah, as I see it a little bit as well, I'm not the most into 40k lore. I've always been more fantasy and as of recently Age of Sigmar as a whole. But I'm invested enough in 40k for reasons that it is still a very interesting and well-developed setting. And I hope to God I'm wrong, but the more and more I started to feel like people like us are proving more and more right, is the fear that they're going to be like, okay, so Chaos opens the floodgates, they are everywhere in the galaxy, and we just going to need to start over or some shit.
I mean, by all accounts, they're definitely setting up some level of an end time situation. I don't know if that's definitely what the people behind all this are thinking right now, but whether it is in their actual minds or not, this is a setup for it. So I don't know. GW have shown interest in wanting to restart with 40k in the past, as far as I think even mentioning it.
Yeah.
But I just really hope that doesn't happen. Like, Warhammer 40k is a bastion of some of the most badass and cool storytelling, cool characters, cool settings, and even the tabletop at its worst has been at least somewhat fun. Like 9th edition, I really didn't like. But it was still fun to play with friends. It's still a good game, relatively speaking. It just wasn't as enjoyable as previous editions. That was its greatest crime. And though I consider that significant, it's
not a good and interesting setting at all.
Yeah, at least it's always been around something I've been so invested in and loved so much for over a decade of my life, which I know is like junior years compared to some people who've been into it since Rogue Trader, like back in the 80s. People have been into this for majority of their lifespan.
No need to put it down. That one is relatively new compared to them, though. Yeah. A fan is a fan.
Fan's a fan, but it's the level of investment has been extreme, and just the hint that they would go this far to nuke some old stuff, and the setup with the Lion coming back, and it's always been said that if the Primarchs all came back, lore-wise, it's been set up that would be the Doomsday event for 40k, like the Wolf time, as the Space Wolves have always thought of it. I'm just really hoping they don't do it. I'm really hoping.
Yeah. Yeah, for the love of God, please don't.
Well, I got other people waiting, man. So, do you have anything else you want to say about the Firstborn being removed? Any specific units you're sad to see to go? Anything like that?
Again, I was never that into Space Marines as such, and I wasn't even the greatest fan of 40k beyond like the premise. But the thing is also that I understand that this is a huge slap to the face overall, and that it is very much a disgrace to lose such iconic and popular models. It is just shameful. Shameful.
Yeah.
That's all I. That's my take on it, basically.
Okay.
It should not have come to this, but there's nothing you and I can do about it, and we can only pray. We can only hope that that continuing to complain and tell them that no, we do not want it to go this direction, that they will avoid repeating the mistakes of end times. But only time will tell.
Oftentimes history rhymes with itself, so I very much see them repeating their same mistakes. But thank you for coming on, man. I'm gonna pull in the next person.
Yeah, thank you. See ya.
Yep. Very man is problematic. Oh god, don't tell me you're one of those. Possibly patriarchal in nature. Mephisto, with respect, not talking about dumb shit like the patriarchy. No, we're talking about a hobby space and a community space and bad news within a community hobby. Let's not bring up, quite frankly, dumb shit. I have no interest in talking or debating patriarchal BS. I'm not no, we're not doing that. Stupid. Oh, the patriarchy. Oh, I don't fucking care. Caboose, welcome.
Yes. What you want, O liege, O master of the server?
Well, I'm assuming you were in the waiting call because you wish to give your thoughts on the annihilation of Firstborn Marines.
I have my Imperial Fish chapter, or company of Firstborn Marines. I'm not getting rid of them. They're not going anywhere. I don't give a fuck what GW says. Because in my area, we basically play anything from 5th to 3rd.
Respect.
Because, fuck GW and, oh, you need this book for this, you need this for that. And I was like, nah, I'm good, fam. I don't like the Primaris. I haven't liked the Primaris. It's, same thing that basically happened with Battletech and the Jihad was, oh, Battleship, everybody dead. It's like Primaris, everybody's reinforced. Nah. And the unmitigated call for a writer to, quote unquote, think that this random art Magos can improve upon the Emperor's design is just unadulterated hubris.
Absolutely. Actually, pretty good phrasing for it.
And personally, I have my own theory. I think the Primaris are Thunder Warriors. I think that the Primaris are what Thunder Warriors were. And pretty soon, with them getting rid of Firstborn, we're going to see a lot of shit happen with the Primaris falling to chaos and mutation and all that whatnot. Because, like I said, I honestly think that they are Thunder Warriors.
My question to that, though, would be, do you think GW has thought that much about it?
Oh, God, no.
Okay.
Fan theories make more sense than GW's actual writing. GW's money.
Yeah, because the difference is fan theories have that baseline requirement of you being a fan and paying attention to the material. Being a writer does not require that, especially if you're a Black Library writer. In fact, it's almost a reward if you don't pay attention and just write your own shit.
Especially my most hated writer, Aaron Dombrowski. Don't get me wrong, he did one good book in Hell's Reach. But I despise that man's writing.
I despise it whenever he writes Loyalist.
Oh yeah, that man can write some really good chaos. But he has a hard-on for getting rid of the Imperial Fist. I mean, he's the dumbass who wrote the first book in the whatchamacallit, the Beast of Rye series, where, just randomly, the entire Imperial Fist chapter just decided to, fuck off Terra and get wiped out to the man. I'm like, yeah, that's something you've been wanting to write for a while now.
Yeah, I hated that, but I thought the idea of it I don't hate. Like the idea like the Imperial Fist or one of their successors being crippled to the point of almost being annihilated, and then them performing the last Raw protocol. The problem is
Oh,
I considered
yeah.
the B saga too small scale, which I know for some might
The
sound
B
ridiculous,
saga.
but
The only reason the B saga exists is to as a test run for the Siege of Terra.
yeah, I'd agree with that.
To write a linear story of several books in a series, it's a test run for the Siege of Terra. Don't get me wrong, there was some really cool stuff in that book, in the books, but as a whole, it just failed horribly.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, I will do this real quick. It's like the nicest I'll ever be to the writers of Black Library. Sometimes I think their writing does come off a lot worse because they either do something before or just after a mandate that comes in from GW, like the higher ups, when they're about to do something for like the plastic line or for the game rules or something like that. Sometimes I think their writing suffers because of elements outside of their control. Like things they either have to add or retcon or whatever. Sometimes it's just done because the higher ups who only care about the plastic and what's selling in that regard are to blame. But
Yeah.
that doesn't excuse a lot of what they do. And the simple fact that they have so many writers, I think in and of itself is a mistake. And I'll never understand why GW does it. Like, why do they hire a writer almost per book in a universe and setting? Like, it only costs them more money because you have to hire a different writer each time. The best guess I have is each time they just find someone new who's desperate for their first job to write for something that's like an established product. So they work for dirt cheap. So that's why they have so many different writers. But if that's the case, why do they hold on to the ones they had before? Why is Dan Abnett still there? Why is ADB still there? Why is a lot of the writers still in Black Library if their scheme to save money in terms of writing the lore is to just keep hiring new writers for dirt cheap so the writer can have their name attached to a pre-established setting that will sell? It just doesn't make sense.
I mean, don't get me wrong. This is going to really date me, but how I learned to read novels is with The Last Chancers. And then, what was it? Honor Guard by Dan Abnett. And I think it's the 4th book in the Gonsko series. So I will always love the Gonsko series. Especially, spoiler for a 13-year-old book. When they killed Trigon Bragg, the book flew across the room.
I can imagine a younger you just frisbee.
Oh yeah, I just chucked that book when that happened. I was so upset.
The only books I've chucked 3 books in my life. One was the first Twilight book because my sister forced me to read the whole book, and when I finished it, I tossed it out the window. I'm not even kidding. Like I tossed it out the fucking window, and it rained that night, so her copy got ruined, and she made me pay for it. It sucked, but I was 13. I don't care.
I think I was 13 when it happened too. Just the hormones and everything. It's just, no, not Bragg, Chuck.
The second book ever I tossed, if I recall correctly, I tossed it because like halfway through the book, the writer, I don't know what happened with the writer. I can't even remember the book now, but the writer completely switched tones. Like the first half of the book was like a grimdark fantasy, and then the second half like felt like the opposite. Same characters, same plot line. It wasn't like it was 2 different stories in one book. But it's just all of a sudden the tone completely shifted. It just pissed me off because I was hoping for a fascinating like conclusion, but it just ended up being something really disappointing. So I tossed it across the room into a garbage can. And the third book ever that I've tossed was Warhammer Adventures.
Oh, dude, I didn't even bother with that because I knew I was going to get pissed at those.
Oh, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. The only thing I can praise about Warhammer Adventures is it's good vocabulary, but...
One's a deserter, one's a tech heretic, and the other's a scion of a rogue trader that's going, because she's associated with the other two, is going to get their letter of marque revoked. which I just find incredibly funny.
And they have their animal sidekick, which is a Jacaro.
Yeah. Uh-huh. It just makes no sense.
It's like the lamest version of Scooby-Doo ever.
Oh, yeah. And,
This is terrible.
Getting back to the firstborn being nuked, it was coming. And like you said, anybody who didn't see this coming was an idiot. They have to get rid of them.
Yeah.
Because they don't fit anymore. And watch, 2 more codex, there'll be no rules for firstborn Marines.
And this is something to be said about the female Space Marine debate. The same would happen with Sisters of Silence if female Space Marines became a thing. To the point where they made like actual custom models for female Space Marines. Which, by the way, lore-wise, they would look the exact same as male Space Marines, so there shouldn't be any difference in the models. But this is GW talking about.
Well, they're going to nuke the series. They're going to end times the series. It's inevitable. We see it coming. They said, "Oh, we're not going to do that." And I'm like, bullshit. You also said you weren't going to get rid of firstborns.
Oh yeah, they even said it. Like I showed you in both those articles. Like the article they released in May about killing off the dreadnoughts. They said, "Oh, don't you worry. Despite what heretics are saying across the, you still fucking did." For anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, I shared both articles at the beginning of this stream. Just start the stream over if you're only joining just now. But they straight up lied. They lied within the article because they said if you wanted to play an entirely firstborn Marine army, you didn't have to field a single Primaris. Even though if you wanted, within that article, that was a lie because they were getting rid of Sternguard veterans, which if you want to play Sternguard veterans, then you had to get the Primaris, or currently you have to get the Primaris. So no, that wasn't true even then. But it's even more of a lie with this latest news.
Yeah, no, I don't. No, I don't trust them anymore. I mean, 40K is quickly becoming a hobby that I don't enjoy anymore because of just them continued to fuck around with it. Yeah. It makes their business decisions, and I say keeps going back to them hiring that Hasbro dude. He's trying to make it into a toy company. It's not a fucking toy company. Well, 40K will never be fully mainstream.
No.
It will never be Marvel. It will never be whatever they think it's going to be.
I agree.
And the fact that they're trying is going to lead them to selling off the 40K title.
The only thing...
Because they will bankrupt themselves trying to be a toy company.
Yeah, the only thing about what you just said I don't agree with is that he's trying to turn it into a toy company. The higher-ups of GW have said since the 80s that they consider themselves a models company and not a games company.
That happens to write rules, but being a toy company and model company are 2 very different things. We're talking between Hasbro and Revell, even though Revell models suck. Or Aerofix kits, Hasbro and Aerofix. 2 very different things. Yeah, they're a model company, but they're trying to be a toy company now. Just look at all the Joy toys that are coming out. The salamanders, all that whatnot. In fact, I just had one of them stolen out of my rig.
I'm sorry to hear that.
It's just, they want to be mainstream so bad because they see the success of all these other nerd things that happen, but they never will be. I mean, there's a reason I'm slowly buying all the physical copies of the Fantasy Flight games RPGs. Like, I have every one of the what is it? Deathwatch series of books. I'm slowly getting the Rogue Trader books. I have one of the books for Black Crusade that introduced the Warpsmith. It's eventually going to come down to old fans and new fans, and these new fans don't have the fucking money. They just don't have the money.
Nope.
And it's kind of like Star Wars. Oh, well, it wasn't made for you. All right, but we have the money. Why can't we find any money to buy our shit? It's like, because you told the old fans that it wasn't made for us, and you don't need us. So we left with our money. Oh, but yeah, how that woman has a job, I will fucking never know.
Yeah.
But yeah, the firstborns are just, I don't know. As long as they don't kill my man Lysander, I'll be happy. He needs a giant fuck off hammer, and he was the best. He is the single-handed best melee character in the game. He can kill anybody first turn outright.
Can't think of anyone that competes. I mean, Gazgul's pretty good in melee range.
How many wounds does Gescal have?
Are we talking 10th edition or 9th?
Ninth or 10th. I don't remember.
9th, I think he had 12? I'd have to pull up my data sheet.
Oh,
12.
Jesus. Yeah, I'm still thinking back when there was like maximum 3 wounds for characters.
Oh, no, now it's like ridiculous numbers. Like, my Stompa has like fucking 20 plus
I remember when vehicles were useless for an entire edition. I think it was 7th or 8th edition. Because you could just glance them to death. You didn't have to hit them. You didn't have to pen. Because the glancing hit took off a hull point. So entire armored companies would just get devastated. But yeah, Lysander's hammer was strength 10, AP 1, no chance of saving throws. And went directly to the wound pool. And you got 4 to 5 attacks on a charge.
Lord Metalman says, can only be damaged a max of 3 wounds per turn. Something about his rules, and he does more damage than... Also, he does more damage the more he's hurt.
Is that Gasco or Lysander? Because that must be the new
that's
book.
Lysander, because I don't think that's Gaz.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for coming on, Caboose. I appreciate it.
Like I said, they're going to run 40K into the ground trying to make as much money for them, and then they'll realize, where did everything go? Where are our fans?
That was Gaz? Is that Gaz's new rules? Because that's the previous rules. I don't remember that. I fielded him twice. Normally, I think he's a war boss, but...
I think because he has the new armor.
Maybe. I have to double check his data sheet. I only run him twice. I don't remember him having that ability. Did I fuck up?
But I agree with you. 3D printer go Bert.
Yeah.
I'm getting into it. I'm getting into it for BattleTech and other models and shit like that. I'm just done. So you have a good day, sir, and I'll probably talk to you later.
Yeah, you too. Thank you for coming on, man.
Bye. Yep. Bye.
Now after the show, I'm gonna double check Gaz's rule sheet for 9th. That was there for 9th. I lost like 3 games that I shouldn't have. All right, Lord Middleman, welcome.
Hello. Can you hear me? Am I coming through all right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Excellent, bud. Excellent. How you doing?
Outside of this news, which, you know, widely life speaking, this isn't too horrible, but I'm doing okay. How about you?
Let's be honest, mate. We saw the writing on the wall for the firstborn like way back.
Oh yeah, when the
We knew
Primaris
it
was
was
first
gonna happen
announced.
eventually.
When Primaris was first announced, like the same day it was announced, people were pointing out that they were planning on replacing Firstborn. Like that was like one of the first things said. I feel like it's taken so long for this to happen because the thing is, the sales for Firstborn dropped instantly after Primaris came out. A lot of Space Marine players went with the meta and immediately started buying up Primaris. So the sales have been steadily getting worse and worse for Firstborn Marines since then. So for me, it doesn't make sense for them now of all times to get rid of them. it would make more sense if they started sifting them out like just like 6 months after Primaris was first dropped, and then steadily from there get rid of the whole line. But the fact that they waited this long just comes off to me like an ego or vanity thing. I feel like GW refused to let the haters, quote unquote, win when we called them out saying, hey, you're getting rid of Firstborn. They were like, nuh-uh. And then that's why they haven't gotten rid of them till now. Like, they feel like now is the time where we're going to not, I guess, shit on them as much as if they had done it, like, immediately after Primaris were first released. That's my theory, but, you know.
Yeah, I'm probably going to take a little bit more of a complicated manner on things. Just to announce, guys, I'm more of a guard player than I am anything to do with Space Marines. I do not have a Space Marines army. I do have a couple of models of Space Marines, but I don't collect Space Marines. I'm a guard guy. So my dog in this fight is pretty much more trying to understand what GW's doing here. And first things first, I'm actually going to ask is, see those Space Marine Firstborn models they're getting rid of? How old were they? Do you have an exact age?
For all of them, no. Most of them, I'm pretty sure, are
You got like a
90s.
rough field part number?
Field Park, 30 years.
You'd say they are all 30 years old, all these Firstborns?
Not all of them, no. Definitely not all of them. I'd say the oldest ones we're looking at are probably the assault squads and the scouts out of those.
And what's the newest ones, would you say?
Out of the ones I've gotten rid of?
Yeah. What edition would you say roughly they were? About 7th?
The Stalker and Hunter, I think, was the newest one. I could be wrong. I don't know how old the Ironclad is. It's been on for a long time, but I'd say Stalker Hunter probably 6th or 7th edition.
Yeah. No, I've got a little bit more of a cynical approach to this rather than a doomer approach, you know what I mean? And you know, I'm on Twitter all the fucking time, so I'm always fucking talking with people, and people are always giving me their opinions, and you know, I get all sides on this matter. So when it comes to this, my takes pretty much were like, okay, it was going to happen, right? Now, some of what your take probably comes into it as well, I'd say, with the whole, you know, they were a bit too proud to, you know, actually turn around and say they were going to replace them. I think that was the original plan. But then they got so much resistance of like, oh fuck, and then they totally botched the beginning of Primaris as well. I think that's a rather infamous thing now in the community itself, because how botched was that launch?
It was fucking terrible.
Yeah,
And
I think that
they were
I think the book as well was even a bit, you know, criticised for it.
It's just everything to do with the Primaris. Like lore wise, they were written in a pocket where like other chapters and other legions and stuff were not considered at all. Like they blanket sweepedly just said like, oh, pretty much every chapter accepted them, including the Black Templars without incident. Which like lore wise, they absolutely boned it 100%. As for the actual like sales numbers and stuff like that, the part of that got botched was I think the pricing when they first came out. Like the disparity between Firstborn and Primaris was significant. I can't recall how much initially. I think it went down. Don't quote me. But most of what I remember of the backlash was just the explanation of them. And a lot of people hated the design. Like, a lot of people liked the giant, pauldron, bulky-looking Firstborn Marines. And the Primaris, to this day, still look like a more refined sci-fi space marine type warrior. They lost a lot of that gothic edge that people associated with the more bulky design of the original. So those were like the two things I remember being like the biggest issue was the lore and the design. But I'm pretty sure there was also a pricing disparity that was like pissing a lot of people off. I can't remember if that lasted a while or if it was just the same as it is now with the disparity. But I remember the big thing being the lore explanations for them and the design.
Yeah. No, another thing as well is, do you remember Dawn of War 3 and the way those Space Marines looked as well? Because that was like right before the Primaris release came out. They had the Marines looking rather like a bit more slender, I think it was, if I remember correctly, than what the normal Firstborn Marines would be. So that, I think Dawn of War 3 was supposed to be like the launching platform for Primaris in a sense. I'm not too sure on that. I don't think it was exactly, but I think it was trying to play tricks on the mind, if you get me.
I don't know. I don't think so. Because you gotta keep in mind that the game came out before Primaris were officially announced, and before it was in development for like 2
it was
years.
literally like on the doorstep to when it was about to release the Primaris thing, wasn't it? It was something like that. It was back either 2015 or 2016. I can't remember the exact date.
Yeah, I don't.
But I know it was close. And I know GW talks to their games when they want to say, right, we want to release some new model or something, can you, put something in the game with it?
I don't think so. I think that was just the art team behind the game. I don't think they're related.
Could be. I'm not entirely sure, but I do think it might have had some influence on it because, as said as well, like, here's my actual thoughts on it. I think they're just going to get like the Malibu Stacy sort of fucking treatment, comes back with a new hat. I think that's what might happen in the future. Because obviously GW is always going to need its cash cow, and I mean Space Marines are like, is it a third of their sales? I'm not exactly sure the exact number, but I know it's a lot. And they're always going to need to bring out something new for the fucking Space Marines to keep the line fresh, so I wouldn't be surprised if they brought back, like, oh, hey, here's some Firstborn Marines, new ones, and all that sort of thing.
Well,
but I don't really
we know they're doing that for Horus Heresy.
I'm looking at the tweet right now. It's saying here, this is the exact quote for the tweet. They've served well, and now it's time for some classic Space Marine kits to take a hard day on the rest. See the full list and going into retirement. Now, a lot of it is obviously Firstborn stuff, right? The thing is, though, they haven't specifically said the Firstborn Marines are going, down. That could be a word trick they're trying to play on as well. Because you never know, in like, say, maybe next year, some fucking con or something comes out and it's like, hey, look at this big mystery reveal, and then the mystery reveal is, oh, look, it's a Firstborn Marine of some sort. Oh, where'd he come from? Oh, he's still around.
Alright, so you theorize that GW are nuking the current range, retiring them for a short period of time to create demand for the sales, and then later re-release new versions?
Well, I mean, they did it with Primaris, didn't they, technically? I mean, I know Primaris are a new thing, but...
Not really.
It was kind of...
Like that.
Primaris' original excuse was more a business decision, was it not?
Primaris was definitely... Because they could copyright the term. Like, Primaris was, again, going back to the core of why this is all happening is financial. Space Marine, they can't copyright. Like, it's referenced and the term is used pretty much everywhere. Primaris, on the other hand, it's not used.
Yeah, you can copyright. You can copyright that. Yeah, that I understand part of why
as well. They've done this. But as for like them doing the same thing that they're doing now with Primaris, not really. Say what you will about Primaris, but at least it was an addition, a terrible one. But it was adding. They weren't really removing anything at the time. Now they're straight up removing things. So if they are doing that, I don't know if you live in the UK, so you would know more about your financial laws. But at least here in the United States, if a company does create artificial scarcity and then like re-releases it later, that's grounds to be investigated. Like, because I'm pretty, I don't know the exact verbiage of the law. I'm not a lawyer, but I know it's illegal to commit. I think that on a level that's fraud. Because you're fraudulently creating a artificial scarcity with a product. And usually with digital goods, they can get away with it, but this is a physical good that they're making an artificial scarcity and then replacing later. The only gray area is it is a UK company, so I just don't know what your laws look like for that. if they do end up.
Yeah,
coming to
I'm
release.
not exactly too sure what the law on it would say, but I mean, I'm sure there's probably a few laws that have probably broken somewhere in the past.
Oh, no doubt.
But yeah, I mean, you could also talk about it on a logistical factor because now you've also got the Horus Heresy game, which is picked up. I believe Horus Heresy is considered like, is it not their second best game now? Because I know it overtook Age of Sigmar on terms of the sales. I know it's overtaken that at some point. It did. Because Horus Heresy is obviously, they're all firstborn Marines. You know, that's another thing to consider too. So, how many lines of Space Marines are they producing? So it might be a downside in that sort of factor too. I'm not an expert in all the logistics and all that. I think Outer Circle's the best guy to fucking ask on that because he's like the plastic injection guy. But it's a possibility. I'll let you get in a word in here, though, mate. I'm going to just take a quick look at my tweets here and see if anyone's got a good reason for this because I've got so many fucking people here have commented on this.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about that aspect of like. I can see it being a downsizing, but the problem is right now, like as a Horus Heresy player, like at this point, I'm playing 40k purely with my orcs because I love my orcs. I always play 40k just to play them on occasion. I've spent enough time.
And they're the fun ones to play, you know.
Yeah. There still are, even though they're not as fun as previous editions, but they're still fun to play, and you never feel like crap when you lose. You just felt like, look at the dice roll. I love my orcs, but for Horus Heresy, I actually take that seriously, and I do want to get into a competitive scene with it. But the problem is, Horus Heresy is already kind of being killed by GW.
Oh yeah, I mean, when the business
they
makes
still
a
haven't
fucking
released
dumb
Assault
decision,
Marines. Like they still haven't released.
yeah.
When they announced, you remember the Warhammer Fest when they announced a Lion?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone in the Horus Heresy community pretty much agreed that if they didn't announce Assault Marines, which is as I spoke to earlier, with any army in wargaming, I don't care if we're talking 40k, Age of Sigmar, Warhammer Fantasy, Bolt Action, it doesn't matter. The foundation of any army is its infantry. And you need to have a capacity of your infantry that is capable of melee and a capacity of infantry that are capable of ranged combat. If the game revolves around ranged combat in any way, you need that in any war game for there to be enough of a diversity of playstyle. If you don't have those foundations, it doesn't matter what other crazy shit you add onto that army. Without those foundations, most army lists are gonna look stupid as hell, and it's not gonna be fun to play. Like, the actual approach is not going to be enjoyable. You need those foundations to make a satisfying army and play experience. So with Horus Heresy, we only have, like, for baseline infantry, basically tactical marines. With bayonets on, like, their guns at most. We don't have assault squads. Like, if you want to play assault marines, you have to buy the existing Firstborn kit and play that in Horus Heresy. They just nuked them. So now it's even worse. Now, they've just killed Horus Heresy. Because now we don't even have a fill-in unit.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was a step towards Horus Heresy bringing out Assault Marines, and it's like, right, step one, we kill the originals. We build them up and starve them a bit, and then we bring out the new ones.
Well, the thing is, we know they are working on them. Like, one of the little bit of news we got during Warhammer Fest was, hey, we have the designs, we're working on them. They showed, like, 3D models of, like, the poses and stuff. Yeah. That's it, though. We still haven't got the actual release. They're not putting in like, they should be done by now.
You would think so. You would think so, but I mean, GW, man, I mean, like, how long did they take? How long have they taken with many things that they've said that they were going to do? Like, I mean, Sisters of Battle, for instance, how many years did it take that to get any plastic?
Way too many.
Yeah. I mean, GW's not exactly big on keeping their promises on anything, and we all know that one at least. But I mean, I think everyone's been a bit too doomer on GW because we have had a lot of things like reconfirming that it's not going down the shitter. But I do think at the same time, though, I get you. It's frustrating.
Yeah, it's infuriating.
Yeah, it rather is. And I mean, GW's made so many dumb decisions. I don't know if they're going to do another Warhammer End Times because I don't know if they've learnt their lesson from Warhammer Fantasy, to be honest, because they killed it off. They brought out Age of Sigmar that hasn't done well for like many years before they started turning a profit. And then when they started turning a profit, what was the big decision they made that's totally countered their Age of Sigmar sort of line? Total War Warhammer.
Yeah.
That game has pretty much revived the entire fantasy era, and that's why you're getting Old World now. Old World wouldn't have even been considered if it wasn't for that game.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't want to do too much overlap with like other like genres of entertainment too much here, because I don't know how much GW's execs do it. But I'd also say other examples, like, you know, World of Warcraft had its classic servers come out, and to huge success.
And then look at the state of that now.
Yeah, that is not a good state now. But my point is that I don't know this, but I have a feeling GW's staff aren't just looking at their contemporaries within wargaming, or just looking at their own personal community's responses to things. But I think they were paying attention to more than just Total War for a video game. I think they've been paying attention to like the bigger communities of both. And there's been this huge shift in both video games and tabletop gaming where people are going back to the older stuff more and more and more. So I think they just saw the craze, like with WoW Classic or with Total War Warhammer 3.
I think you can also thank Hollywood for that right now, because Hollywood right now, I mean, how are they doing?
Terrible.
They're in a terrible state.
It's really telling that because normally, like with like strikes and stuff like that, there's actually a lot of people who are on like the side of like the strikers in a lot of industries, even if people aren't a part of those industries. But it's really telling to me that even if you go on Twitter and other places like that are normally like really hardcore for like unions and stuff, that there's so little sympathy for Hollywood writers striking right now. Like, there is sympathy, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of people who are simping for, like, the strikes. But there are way more people that I've noticed just going, I don't fucking care.
Yeah, I mean, the most of us, I would say, are just sat there with the popcorn watching the two of them fight it out.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like, I'm just going to say the Film Actors Guild because I love that.
Don't say the acronym, please, because I'm on YouTube and they will nuke the stream.
Don't you worry, mate. Don't you worry.
It's their acronym, though. They chose it. It's not like this is something that everybody else made up. They fucking chose it.
It's actually the Screen Actors Guild, and I don't know if that's much better.
Oh, did they change it?
I don't know if they changed it, but it's still quite funny. So, Screen Actors Guild and the writers. It started with the writers, and then the screen actors came in and was like, we want to have some attention too. We're going to fight the producers, and no. And it's like, a lot of them have all just basically turned around, and they have everything we've loved about cinema and such has been utterly destroyed by these clowns. And then these clowns have sat there and they've insulted us when we turned around and said, we don't like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And because of that, it's really backfired on them. It has, because now they've got these strikes and I want everyone to you feel sorry for us. And it's like, well, I mean, you didn't give us a fucking fair shot when, you know, it happened, so why should we do it now? And I think another thing you need to also consider as well, how many of the big companies that have been doing all this wokery nonsense and all this crap as well, how many of them are backing away from that now? Quite a lot of them. And I mean, GW was trying to... Sorry, mate, what did you say there?
Most of them. Most of the ones I'm thinking of, anyway.
Yeah, quite a lot of them have, and a lot of them are utterly rejecting it now. And I mean, the amount of money some of them have bloody lost. But I think GW was starting to dip its toes into it. And then when they realised, oh fuck, this is starting to get mega rejected right now, I'm going to back away from that, you know. And I think they've tried to take some steps to get our confidence back in it. That's why they've printed the Only Men Can Be Space Marines, Only Thunder Warriors Can Be Space Marines. They put that in that new First Founding book. I can't remember the actual name of it again. It was the new one that everyone had a wee bit of a problem with because it had the Primaris helmet on the front of it. But it was called the First Founding book, and they actually put in the line there, only males can be Thunder Warrior sort of thing. So that really got them going a bit, oh, someone there's listening to us. And then we had that release with the Space Marines or something that was. I'll need to find the actual screens of it. But essentially, there was like a couple of wee star asterisks or something that was beside it, and it was like space poster boys. I think it was. It said Space Marines are the poster boys, and then in a couple of wee star asterisks, there was like a little bit down on the page that further explains what it meant. It went quite literally, or something that is they ended up saying. Won't it? So there's people there, and there's that thing about the guy that leaked Curse City as well. There's plenty of guys who are still in GW who are still, on our side, still believe that, it should be the way that it is, and that some of them do actually want it. However, you will still get the occasional idiot writer or something for GW who blots something out. Like, I mean, who was the one that wrote the line? Mike Brooks. He is, like, infamous for being a complete political nut job most of the time.
And ADB and
yeah, I know there's another one. Is it Guy? No, it's no Guy Haley, is it?
No, it's Dan Abnett. I'm pretty sure.
Dan Abnett's not that political. I'd say he kind of keeps himself a wee bit more away from it.
I definitely hear less about it than I do from ADB, but he did make some statements around the time. I haven't played.
Yeah.
Dark Tide was being like propagated and stuff like that. I recall him making some comments around that time that were definitely political. Right. So
I mean, I've got a tweet here. I've got a tweet here for Mike Brooks, right, essentially. He said, I have been summoned yet again to tell people that I started playing with Second Ed in 1993 and that everything is political with a question mark, right? Even being apolitical is political because it means that you're happy with the status quo and see no need to change that. Now, Mike Brooks is a fucking massive idiot. Yes. That's my honest opinion there, and I don't think anyone should listen to him. He is currently jumping up and down and gloating right now because of the Lion Book. Now, I'm not being funny, mate, right? The Lion Book wasn't successful because of him. The Lion Book was successful because it was the Lion coming back. How many years was that waited for in the community?
Specifically the Lion coming back, or another Primarch other than Gilliman?
The Lion coming back.
Specifically the Lion.
Well, how long have we known the Lion's been alive and he's been at the Rock? Sleeping.
Decades?
Yeah.
Pretty sure it was one of the early 2000s books that
I mean, the reveal was earlier this year. I mean, was it earlier this year or was it just last year?
Well, the reveal was around the same time they released him, which was earlier this year. But I'd say...
How high was the hype on that?
Pretty high.
Yeah, I'd say massive.
Pretty high. It was a lot of people really like the Lion, and even people who don't are just happy to see another Primarch other than Gilliman.
Yeah. And it to me, it was such a massive, oh my god moment, you know what I mean? For many fucking folk. That was the kind of impression.
I don't want to cut you off too much, but I kind of have to. I got two other people waiting in call, and this conversation's going on a while. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, we've talked a good while, man, haven't we?
Yeah.
No, not a problem, man. I'll get my ass moving. But yeah, the final point I just wanted to make there was, though, is that Mike, he didn't make his success on the fact that he's a good writer. He made his success on an event we'd been waiting for. And it's what many of these idiots have been doing, and now they're getting found out. So don't be too doomer on the thing. The market speaks. Let things go a bit, but I will say, don't be afraid to voice your opinions.
Never am.
Definitely. Let them know when you're upset. Alright, guys. Anyway, guys, take care, and I'll see you around. And if you're on Twitter, find me. See you guys. See you, Asmo. Cheers for having me, mate.
Thank you for coming on. Yeah, that's Lord Metal. If you are on Twitter and you're a 40k fan, he runs the Legion of Unpopular Opinions, and that's like the best community if you want to get into like, you know, just 40k and focusing on hobby stuff and sharing your miniatures and getting positive feedback, good critiques and stuff like that. Check him out. Like he runs the 40k community over there. In my opinion, he runs the whole of what actually is the 40k community. And everyone outside of it or directly opposed to the Legion of Popular Opinions are usually the political activist types. So if you're looking for actual 40k fans with actual interest in focusing on the hobby, look for him over on Twitter. Anywho, I will now pull in our next caller. All right, Jacob Heder. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, and I assume that you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. So, what do you think about
my opinion on the general opinion of the news is, it seems that this came while it was highly expected. It came almost as abrupt as the appearance of the Primaris themselves. No special build-up, just oh hey, here's cool, and here's my gigantic freezer of millions of Space Marines, to paraphrase Arch a bit.
Yeah, I'd say I agree and disagree. I agree of the suddenness in regards to just how many were nuked out of here, but in terms of like them sifting out firstborns as a whole, like as them actually doing that, this is actually kind of late in the game. Like, I thought they were going to start sifting them out fairly immediately after Primaris were introduced, but they didn't actually start doing the removal of firstborn until very recently. Like they started off small with just the dreads back in May, and now they've just nuked pretty much the rest of the range, with the exception of tactical squads for some ungodly reason.
I generally don't really follow much of. I'm a bit of a fan, but I mostly follow the lore through, well, mainly Arch and here, and focus more on the pathing. Don't really keep an eye on the more newer stuff. So you have been one of the main sources of that, but I don't really check on that.
Okay,
So much.
that's fine.
And however, I was also the one that mentioned that that said the thing about the chaos, or the chaos guys almost being the only ones that could be considered to have the first one, and that sort of got me thinking. Since, as you mentioned in the previous in your previous conversation, and the one before me, the main reason that they axe the majority, they axe the firstborn, is so that you can want to keep and get the Primaris thing. All that was to get something that you could copyright. And how will that transformation eventually go over to chaos? Because that's also something that I highly expect will happen. And then I remembered your talk with something that was said on your video about on the open mic with the Templin Institute fan. One of your viewers that called in, he mentioned that Fabius Bile had been putting more interesting on non-Astartes super soldiers that could kill that could actually fight and beat Space Marines. And that's what I'm thinking, do you think that perhaps that will be the way that the new chaos will be? No more that will be what will replace the Primaris, that the oldest Chaos Space Marines.
Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, there was a little, I started to lose you a little bit at a couple spots. But if I'm understanding you correctly, you're asking if the Fabius Bile, how he's working to make Super Space Marines. You think what he's working on will result in what Chaos will have for the equivalent to Primaris?
Not Super Space Marines. I think it was Family Bile that the guy was talking about. The biological, the artificially created super soldiers that you could breed, that you could have both males and females, and thus breed to create more.
Yeah, what that is it is a Space Marine. That's what Fabius's bio is working on. As for the female part, that is entirely speculative. That's nothing actually written in the lore. It's just that a lot of people have argued that that is what would make sense. If you were to add like a female Space Marine, it shouldn't be for Loyalists, it should be for Chaos. And I agree, actually. I think the one place you could add female Space Marines that would make sense and is as Chaos mutations. Because there it would make sense. Like everything that we understand about like the Space Marine requirement for males only is entirely focusing through the lens of the Loyalists who aren't using Chaos Corruption, at least presumably. Chaos Corruption and Chaos Magics and the Void and Warp Fuckery to manipulate stuff. They're trying to stick close to purely genetic manipulation and like the actual format of the Emperor. Whereas Chaos are trying to actively not do that. So if you were to add female Space Marines anywhere that would make kind of sense, it would be with Chaos. But as for but that's what Fabius Bile is working on is not just a super soldier. It's specifically he's trying to reach the full potential in his mind for Space Marines. So the super soldiers he's working on are Space Marines. And if lore-wise, if GW does want to make a Primaris equivalent for Chaos, it will be, at least I can't think of anywhere else it would come from, but it would be through Fabius Bile.
Fully agree on that.
Huh.
Yeah, don't really have much more to contribute with that, really. So
Well, that's fine. I appreciate
unless you want to say something,
I appreciate.
take something that you want to.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for giving your thoughts and your opinions. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Anywho. He was cutting out a lot there. I have no idea what he said. The Newman? I wasn't referring to the Newman, James Mackin. I was referring to his experiments with Space Marines and Gene Seed. Not sure why Newmans are being brought up. Anywho. Hello, can you hear me?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay, good. I'm actually a little messed up, so. But yeah, I'm not actually too disappointed about it because I'd already given up on Games Workshop. I think 10th edition was kind of what broke my back, you know? Because, like, they came up with those rules. I think what really did it for me was that they got rid of combi weapons, which kind of eliminated a lot of the customization, you know?
I mean, I've been meaning to do this, and I was thinking about doing a video on it. And I was even being requested by some people to do a video on it. But let this be the first place I say this. I told everybody that I told you so. I'm not doing meaning you specifically, man. But I mean, like, generally, I told you also. I did a stream where I reacted to them announcing 10th edition, and I lamented and bitched and moaned that the 10th edition was going to suck as soon as they told us they were going to try and streamline it, quote unquote. I got a shit ton of people saying I was being a doomer and I was being ridiculous and that, they're just going to make the systems more refined. That's never what GW has ever done, ever, when they say we're streamlining or we're going to make this work faster or more efficiently. What that translates to for GW, let's remove entire systems and mechanics out of the game so it goes faster.
Yeah, well, it's like in the the things they do, they are like, oh, we're making it simpler, but then it's not simpler because everybody's been complaining about the stratagems.
Yeah.
It's like that's not simpler. That's like that's actually like Horus Heresy levels of rules bloat. Like you got to read entire paragraphs because you've got all these rules associated with these models now that you have to have memorized.
Yeah, but when it comes to like the war gear and stuff for 10th that I've seen, it looks terrible. Like, I really hate 10th edition.
Well, part of the amazing thing too is like the rules. They've had rules in the past that they revived to work better. So they kind of did that with adding, characters into squads again. But they've had that whole issue with like how armor piercing and cover would kind of like give models a 2-up save, which was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'd always been hoping that they would bring back the cover saves because I thought that worked pretty well.
I would agree.
But I guess getting back on topic, it's like for me, I started playing at the tail end of 7th, maybe like 6 months before they announced that they were going to do 8th edition. And ever since I think 8th edition, I had fun with because at least there was a lot of options, and they've kind of been decreasing that slowly over time. And I kind of found myself bouncing around between different factions, I would basically run away from one faction when I felt like it had been ruined and kind of start playing another one of my factions more. And now I'm just at the point where there's none left I actually want to play that much, because I started playing Mechanicus and then they screwed up their infantry squad, so you couldn't take 3 weapons anymore, or 3 special weapons. Then I kind of hated the directions they took the orcs, and then I hated the changes to guard, and Space Marines was kind of the last thing that I had any interest in, and now I just don't care about Games Workshop products anymore.
Can't blame you. I mean, I really can't. I still play 40K because I'm an addict. I spent all that money and all that time painting my minis.
Same.
I will people say a cost sunk fallacy. I don't know. For me, it's not a fallacy. I put way too much into it, so I do definitely feel like I need to justify it a little bit. I am capable of I don't buy GW products anymore. In that sense, I have quit 40K. Like, I don't buy anything from GW anymore, except maybe paints. I 3D print new models.
It's not some cost fallacy that could just cut your losses. Be like, I got the models I already bought. I'm gonna play them because I still enjoy them a little bit, but I'm not gonna continue to invest.
Yeah, I guess from that perspective, then yeah, I guess I'm not falling for that. But yeah, it's just I've invested so much of my youth and my time into this hobby. I don't know if I'll ever fully give up on it. I mean, I will say that this news has demoralized me quite a bit. I mean, I appreciate Lord Metal a moment ago while he was on trying to give a different perspective that's a little bit more positive and not so hopeless, but it's just I can't help but circle back in my head to this feels so much like a bell toll for a potential end time situation. And I don't even just mean the event, there's going to be this big apocalypse with 40K lore wise and with the game wise, and they're going to restart. And that is a fear, but for me, it's end times when I say an end times type event, I mean more in terms of significance of bad decisions. I just feel like this is the precursor to a much worse series of choices and decisions that they're about to hit us with, and I really don't want to see how they're going to further destroy this.
Yeah, well, there's 2 videos on YouTube I saw about different properties, but it kind of made me understand what Games Workshop is doing a lot better. There was one about Cowboy Bebop saying copying without understanding. The title says it all. And then there was also Fallout 3 is the best fan game ever made. And I think that explains everything about what Games Workshop is doing. They're just making corporate fan fiction that they don't really understand our property anymore is kind of very prevalent in it, Yeah. But, one of the reasons I actually got into miniature gaming was because I used to play a lot of video games. And then I would hop onto the lobby after 3 or 4 years, and it'd be like a ghost town. And I was like, well, I'm going to put my time and effort into something that is going to be long lasting, you know?
Long lasting, social, actually gets you out of the house.
Yeah, and those were bonuses too.
I'm
but
not
it's like-
teasing. I'm not like mocking
I'm-
you or anything for that. I'm a video game. I played World of Warcraft from vanilla till Shadowlands. Okay, I played a single MMORPG for over almost 2 decades. Okay, so if there's anyone like, I'm not teasing you on that. That's just I relate.
No, that is you know, unironically one of the reasons I started doing this. I was like, I need to connect with people better, you know, because
Yeah.
I was kind of holed up in my house and all that.
Yeah, that was a draw for me.
You
as
know,
well.
it's like you know, you buy these models and you're like, you know, they can last forever, but and the sort of like the state of the game as it is actually like a worst case scenario where they stop supporting models, but they still support the game. So it's like you can't. It's kind of hard to find people wanting to play an older edition or something where that model is still valid.
Yeah.
And the more I got into it, the more I learned about these other models that have like, you know, gone away forever, like the Greater Narlock. And I once saw somebody asking if this terrain feature they bought, like, you know, maybe like a decade ago, still had rules, and people had to tell them no. And I'm just like, I don't see a lot of reason to buy Games Workshop models if they're going to deliberately outdate them. You know, they've kind of become devalued in my eyes.
No, I agree with that perspective. Actually, the siphoning of the value is actually only increasing. That was a weird way to phrase that. The level that they are devaluing their setting as well as the fan community and the game as a whole with decisions like this is only getting worse. I think there's a better way to put it.
Yeah. Well, it's like even like their newer stuff. I'm just like, you know, I'm gonna hit on the dwarfies right now. It's like I looked at those and I'm just like, oh, that's cool. I wonder what game system they're from. You know.
Well, TK, real
like,
quick.
the new Infinity Army looks great.
Yeah, I've actually thought. I'll spout. I got a super chat real quick. Let me read this. Tika, thank you so much for the $5, man. I do feel bad for my Warhammer 40k brothers and sisters I left at 8th edition. Probably a good choice, to be honest. Try Bolt Action, Conflict 47. I'm working on that. I haven't been my money situation is not great, which is why I appreciate the super chat all the more. But Gaslands, Zona Alpha, Carnival, Fallout, Wasteland, Warfare. Yeah, I definitely recommend to people like myself who are interested in playing a bolt action like game, but you're not so much a fan of history. As like I'm a nut for like sci-fi, bombastic craziness, and Conflict 47 does look like it's a good mix between the two. Like it's got that historical bolt action system, and it's got that vibe to it, but it's also satisfies my desire for over the top mechs and like crazy shit with, I'd recommend Conflict 47. I'm planning on getting into that.
My eyes been kind of wandering to other systems. I took a fascination with Turnip 28 recently. I saw that for Fallout they came out with the New Vegas stuff, so
yeah.
I'm very interested in that right now.
I'm developing my own tabletop war game as well, so.
No, I've actually been working on something too because I'm basically tired of not seeing the game I want to play on the market. You know.
Yeah, that's crazy how that's come to be about, hasn't it? Like a lot of us, are not only getting to the point where we're quitting these universes and going to like other settings and other tabletop games, but we're also getting so frustrated that we're making our own stuff. That's happening in the comics industry. It's happening in the indie film industry. A lot of people are getting so fed up with how things are that we're actually like the average person is starting to take over and trying to create their own stuff. So I think that is like the biggest positive I can pull away from like these companies making these terrible decisions is at least it's opening the door for the little guy, if you will, to rise up and make something that everybody will actually enjoy again.
Yeah, well, it's like, there was that kind of, I guess, renaissance period before 8th edition when there was all these smaller game companies that were doing very well for themselves, and if this results in that again, I'll actually be very happy. I think that'll be for the best.
Yeah, I'd agree. Thank you so much for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
always love my callers. I always get like the best people. Alright. Alright. Spiffier Mage. Spiffier Mage, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Alright. Welcome to the show. So what do you...
How you keeping?
Yep. I'm okay. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I'm okay.
Alright. So yeah, Firstborn just being gone now apparently, yeah.
Yeah. Again, like the one thing I will forgive people for being surprised about is the suddenness, like all at once. But yeah, like just... Were you here at the beginning of the stream? Question mark?
No, not at the beginning.
Okay.
I only noticed the stream was running because I looked over at the tabs on my Discord and saw that there was the microphone beside the call line.
Of course. Thank you, YouTube, for sending out notifications. I appreciate it. So
Also, for anyone watching the official video when it's up on YouTube, that's your cue to join the Discord.
yes. The Discord I'm taking the calls and everything. It's not technically a community Discord. It is just for these call lines when I do the open mics. But I do the open mics, I think, often enough to justify, joining this little Discord area. And I always encourage people to come into the calls whenever I do open mic, participate, give your thoughts on topics. And they're almost always related to wargaming, if not 40k specifically. Sometimes I'll do stuff that's a little, not related, but anywho.
Yeah, it's not super active. It's not super active because of that, but when it is, it's just people being sound out.
Yeah. If you do want to join my community Discord, I do have one of those. I vet people before they join in, so I know they'll actually, get along. So if anyone wants to join that, just fair. DM me and, I'll run you through like an interview questionnaire. But back on topic. I
even checked Games Workshop and like 90% of all the Firstborn stuff is just no longer available.
Oh yeah, and at the beginning of the stream, I pulled up do you remember the Sternguard veteran and box dread culling a few months ago?
Yeah, I remember that one.
I pulled up the article at the beginning of the stream because in that they said they said something that in and of itself was already a lie with the article it was attached to, but it became a worse lie for this one because they said something. I closed the tab, so I'll paraphrase. If you want the actual, the exact quote, I said at the beginning of the stream anyway. So, but basically they said, despite the heretical whispers that are about, we are not removing all firstborns. In fact, we're keeping most of them. Their words was most. So, if you want to play an entirely firstborn army without a single Primaris, you can. And that was already a lie that was already a lie in the article itself because they were getting rid of Sternguard veterans. And if you are a firstborn player that wants to play Sternguard and you missed out on the sale for the last chance to get the firstborn, you have to field Primaris to play Sternguard. So that was a lie.
They have found themselves a wonderful little loophole in that, these Primaris-looking models, they're definitely firstborn. We swear, buy our Primaris. Oh, God. I'm not even kidding. I actually, when the stuff for the Sternguard veterans dropped, I genuinely clocked out of the hobby. I left all the group chats that my friends have set up dedicated to it and everything, and I've already sold off all my Skaven.
Wow.
I'm still trying to pawn off my other stuff, but they've already been willing to completely upend and replace an entire faction, one that I played primarily, with just this new shit that they pulled out of their ass, and if they're willing to do that to their poster boys, they're probably going to be willing to do it to anything else, like my Eldar, for example.
Yeah, I'd say the differences between this and maybe them getting rid of or replacing old lines of new stuff in other factions. With this, it's far more sinister or worse because it's not just they're removing these and updating them. They're straight up being replaced by Primaris. Like an entirely worse faction lore-wise and design-wise than the original Firstborns that we all liked and loved. And
Sure, that's the way fucking anything is being removed nowadays. Anyway, just fucking replace the original with the worst and make sure no one can get the original anymore.
Yep. And it sucks.
Rest in peace, Dr. Seuss.
Rest in peace. Yeah, I still have my Ironclad Dreadnought in a box, which I will now never open. I'm preserving them.
I mean, it's a lot more valuable that way.
Yep.
Yeah, like I even made a custom chapter and everything for my Firstborn, and now it's just, why did I even bother getting into the hobby?
Yeah, I mean, I get where you're coming from, like with that Doomer kind of vibe. I feel it. Trust me, I do. I guess I feel it a lot less than you do though, because I was primarily an Orc player. Space Marines are my second army.
Yeah, because like I joined in 2018. I remember I said before on one of your other streams, and yeah, they were in full swing back then at the time, and at least back then it didn't look like they were being replaced, and I just started, so I was very green to everything.
Yeah, and I said this at the beginning of the stream and a couple times throughout, but and I don't mean to target this at you, but this is generally my take, and it's gonna sound a bit mean, but for the people who thought that the Firstborn Marines were going to be around like forever and didn't think that they would ever be officially replaced by Primaris, I genuinely believe those people are one of two things: stupid or naive. Again, can sound like...
Oh, don't worry, that died in me very quickly.
Yeah, I don't mean to be a dick, but it's just there's no other way.
I'm fully aware it is effectively copium.
Mm.
Yeah, just when I joined, I didn't quite know GW as well as I do now.
Yeah.
So at least back then, I had ignorance on my side.
Oh, real quick, I just got a $10 super chat. Tigda, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Shameless plug, Asmogon, I'd like to invite you to do a podcast with my group, Quiet Order Gaming. Topic will be Warhammer 40k mini painting. Tips and thoughts on minimum requirements for games and events. So my alert might be broken again.
Oh, whack.
Oh, sounds like it stopped. Okay, good. Thank God.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we can talk about that in DMs. You have me on Discord. In more like detail. That's fine with the shameless plug. I don't mind. I guess like the only question I'd toss out to you now, and again we can talk about this in DMs. I have a guest here right now, but we can talk about this in DMs. But the only question I'd toss your way is: are you asking me to be a permanent host or just a guest? But anyway, back to topic at hand. And again, thank you for the super chat.
Yeah.
So yeah, question. So you've completely given up on
Yes.
40k, and I'm gonna assume all GW games.
Yeah.
Okay. What systems are you kind of migrating towards right now?
I am thinking of getting into goddammit, say the name of it, BattleTech. There we go. Because just my friendly local game store, the owner there, he fucking plays European Championships in it, so he can't shell it enough. There's a good few people who still play it. To my knowledge, BattleTech hasn't done anything to shaft its lore. So
it did do one thing. Do you know about the Blame Pardo situation?
Yeah, that's the writer that got fucking slandered by a stalker, wasn't it?
Yes, and the company tried to hire his stalker to write lore for them.
Yes, after throwing him under the bus, I remember that.
Yeah, so that I'm not gonna be too. I don't want to be. I do hope BattleTech doesn't fall, but
yeah,
that is a bit of a concern that they're starting to get. They're being, at the very least, they're being influenced politically, which I don't like. They should just stay as a games company and stay out of that BS.
Keep that gate and keep it well.
Yep. But that's like the only like little bit of a fair warning I'll give people who are, because I know a lot of 40k people who are migrating to BattleTech, and all the power to you. I've not played it. I can't speak to its quality, but I will say, be mindful that battle tech and the people behind it aren't really impervious to this BS. They've very recently been affected by it in 2 major events. Hopefully, it'll never affect widely, and it will stay. Hopefully, politically, they'll keep it out of the game, and also, politics and writing and lore, all that aside, the actual game itself will hopefully always be good. That's what I hope for.
We can always hope, and that's just about it, I guess.
Yeah. And if not, I'm making a tabletop game. So if anyone's interested, I have a Patreon. Got some STLs up already. Still working on the game rules. Still working on all that. It's far from finished, but it's being worked on. So.
I remember those ads blasting my ears out.
Speaking of shameless plugs. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, yeah. While you're making that, I'm at least world building for my own setting that I made out of the sense of existential dread.
Well, I'm sure that'll mean it's high quality then.
Yeah. Well, right now it's basically just the world exists because one god wanted entertainment and accidentally gave birth to a second one, and they're basically playing keep away, trying to decide who owns it.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, man. I appreciate you giving your take, and I think a lot of people are feeling like you and I do right now. And
yeah. Hopefully you don't have anyone in your friend circle who goes, I guess you finally decide you actually hate Warhammer now all of a sudden.
None of my friend group, I think, will say. I have a feeling I'll get someone like that in the comments of this stream, but not in my friend group.
Yeah, remember when I DM'd you with that question about a guy going, everything you say is a dog whistle?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was that guy.
Okay.
Yeah, it was that cunt.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I give you the advice to deal with it. Best of luck with that.
Take care, and hopefully the dogs don't start barking when you speak.
Hopefully. They've been good today. They barked a little bit earlier, but yeah. Thanks again, man.
Well, they weren't going off when I spoke, so that's a good thing anyway.
Yep.
God, fucking damn it, that asshole. See ya.
See ya. Alright, we got 2 callers left, and I think we'll call it after that. Guess. Sorry about that. Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. Alright. Frank. Did I say that right? I almost said Cat Frank.
Oh, let me tweak my settings. Is my mic fine?
Yeah, I know you're a little quiet, but I can turn you up.
All right. Yeah, I didn't see you until after you were already an hour in.
Yeah, YouTube loves to screw my streams over.
Oh yeah. Yeah, haven't been into Warhammer for maybe the past 5 years or so, but I first got in maybe with the original Dawn of War. I had friends who had already had the books and stuff like that, so I don't really remember how much when I first started. But yeah, killing off the Firstborn. Or classic Marines, as they should more.
Yeah, I've just been going with the term Firstborn, but yeah,
That's what they push.
Yeah, Classic Marine definitely is better. I mean, the OGs, it is sad to see them fall. I mean, do you got any specific feelings about it?
No, it's something I felt like was probably since the Gathering Storm started. With just how quickly they started pushing lore, I felt something was changing. But yeah, I can remember all the stuff about Matt Ward, everyone making fun of him, and I wish he was back instead of this.
I hate to admit it, as much as I didn't like Matt, yeah, he's better than some of this crap that we've been getting lately.
Yeah. And I feel like if the lore was tweaked just a little bit, I feel like Primaris wouldn't have been as it is. Like, if you took Call and changed it from being him doing all this borderline magical shit and changed it into, let's say, the Emperor made the Primaris Marines as the original Marines, and during the Horus Heresy, they had to cut back and strip back some of the stuff to make Marines faster to deal with the event. That I feel like would have been a lot better of a reason to have this change.
Oh, yeah, that still has holes in it, but that would be literally just taking Call out of it, and because he's a Mary Sue of a character that they just pulled out of their ass to explain
Pops
them.
up when they I can't remember what book series did it, but there was one where a character did that. He just show up, save the day, takes all the build up and just ruins it.
Yeah, it's like a Deus Ex Machina level situation. It's frustrating, and Call was a terrible addition to the game. I still think that. I don't even like his model, and normally that's like the one thing. Like normally I'll hate the lore of something, but I'll be like, oh well, the model doesn't look too bad though. I hate Call's model actually. It's big and bulky and has way too much shit going on.
Yeah, I thought the first Primaris Marine models they revealed looked nice, but then you got like these hover Marines and like getting back into like even the memes from 10 years ago that have stayed in the community for so long. It shows how much people care. But now I can see just there's barely anything. Community feels dead in most places.
Yeah, the community is definitely on a downturn. I mean, unfortunately, the places where the community is loud and proud, it's also where there's like the most like political arguments happening at the same time. Like Twitter, there's a significant 40k community on Twitter. Like I said, the Legion of Unpopular Opinion led by Lord Metalman, they're pure hobbyists. They're not, getting involved with activism or trying to affect things in the hobby due to political leanings. They just try and be, actual hobbyists and encourage people to paint their minis, and give advice here and there, actually circulate the community. But at the same time, they're constantly, because they're on Twitter, they're constantly under assault by the nut jobs that are activists that are going on. So like I said, if you are looking for where the community is most active, it is unfortunately in the same places where there's also the most like contention between like hobbyists and
the beast.
Yeah, that's unfortunately how things are right now. I don't know if it's the same with like other tabletop games like Bolt Action or Conflict 47 or BattleTech. I don't know what their communities look like right now, but I could say for 40k specifically, there's a lot of contention.
Yeah, a lot of them aren't faring much better. A lot of places think that they're safe from this. They're too niche, they're too small, but as soon as something big gets taken over like Star Wars, well then it's time for 40k, time for Tolkien's turn. It spreads.
It's like a disease. It's very, very comparable to a malignant tumor.
And I think of it more like a chaos cult. Always trying to find a new way to subvert and change.
Always trying to find a way to corrupt.
Yeah, I can remember back to the early BattleTech when the Dark Age first started and all the FASA stuff and post-Mech Warrior 4 when everything was changing. People left. It was a very small community who kept it together outside of just people buying the new books or buying models. But I think that's what Games Workshop's going to end up forcing to everyone. Just make them leave.
I mean, yeah, and that's the only way GW is going to stop making terrible decisions is when it hemorrhages them. Problem is, there's still that theory. I won't call it a conspiracy theory. It's got some merit to it for sure. That guy who used to work at Hasbro is trying to corrupt the company from the inside and make them, fall apart so Hasbro can come in and sweep up the company for dirt cheap. There's certainly an argument to be had for that. I wouldn't doubt it. I doubt elements of it, but the level of bad decision making they've made, even from a business perspective, as of late, just seems to stack so much. It just feels like something's going on.
Yeah, it always had that air since, again, Gathering Storm started, that something was going on in the background. Either a change of management or change of conduct. Something really started to stink, because even with just the start of the books, I felt something was wrong. I pretty much put the books down and just stopped. I've never actually gotten to the tabletop, but I had friends who were, and they just kind of retired. They put their stuff away and just moved on.
Yeah, I mean, Spiffier Mage, the caller before you, he's straight up selling all of his minis. He's sold all his Skaven, and he's trying to sell the rest of what he's got. And that's becoming a more and more common story I'm hearing from people, and it sucks to hear. It does, because I know I'm gonna hold on to play 40k on some capacity. I don't buy models from GW, and I don't attend their official tournaments. I only play with what I have or what I can 3D print and stuff like that. And if I need the game rules, I just go on Wahapedia and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been for a long time wondering if some of the bigger people of the community would start to get together and just decide, hey, we're going to take everything we like of Warhammer and just scrub away what we don't like and replace with something that fits better.
Yeah.
Make a fan alternative within the community.
And that's pretty much what's happening with the Warhammer community right now is... 40k, I should say, specifically. Warhammer Fantasies... I can't speak to it. I don't play it at all. But with the 40k community, we're starting to... I've noticed a lot more people are trying to start forming, like, groups more and more in their local areas. At least in mine, this is happening. I hope it's happening in other places, too. But they're trying to formulate these little, like, small get-together tile groups where several members of the community have 3D printers, and everybody's just kind of either writing up fan versions of the rules, or they're trying to, like, go back to older editions and just make some slight tweaks to them so they can, like, play together at, like, stores and hobby spaces and things like that. That's starting to happen, and I do think that's gonna be what ends up happening to the 40k community. I would say in probably 6 years, maybe less.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like they'll pull a end of the universe sort of event. Probably as a way to split to make new factions, get rid of the ones that they deem unpopular or unprofitable, and even start over from...
Even if they don't do that, I still see the community splitting off into like just entirely cutting themselves off from GW, because people are getting that sick and tired of them. Like people have always hated GW, but the hatred is getting intense. Like everywhere I go, like I hate them intensely, but some people I've come across have said some things, made some suggestions that they want to go all the way to Britain and do some things, and I'm like, okay, like, this is a game. Don't get me wrong, I understand the passion, but maybe casually talking about going somewhere and doing certain things to a building is a bit extreme.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I will say, if there's anybody watching this right now who's at that level, walk away. Like, find a new hobby, calm the fuck down. It's not that bad. Like,
yeah,
but I can understand
your own 40k with blackjack and hookers.
Which is what I'm doing. It's great.
Yeah.
It's not just hookers. Brazilian hookers.
Perfect.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, Star Wars did the same thing when Disney took over. People got tired of it, and there are small groups trying to make their own little enclaves, but
yeah, they'll
get deemed counterculture by the current norms and beaten down.
Yep. And that's sadly what always happens. I just wish, like, more so, people would just leave those groups alone. It's like, okay, they got sick and tired of the old shit. Let them just establish their own little pockets, communities, and try and establish some semblance of the escapism the company that once produced it officially gave them.
Yeah. Yeah, I've talked with a few people who used to work at Games Workshop, and they're not disenfranchised might be a way of putting it. I can't remember the term. They just have no morale. They're heartbroken. They've seen what they loved, what they built for 30 plus years, just torn apart.
I'd say disenfranchised works for that. That's the right word. I mean, I guess you guys can kind of hear it in my voice as this stream has gone on. Like, started out very impassioned at the beginning because my anger was fresh, but now, you know, I'm not gonna lie. I try not to be too emotionally attached to this kind of stuff, because at the end of the day, it's like, I'm a consumer. I buy a product from this company, and I currently don't. But I'm also a huge fan of 40k. Like, I love the grimdark setting. I've always fallen in love with like the old stories and artwork that they had in the old codexes, and the books, like the Horus Heresy novels, at least the first set of them from back in the day.
Yeah.
It's just I've been in love with this setting for so much of my lifespan. Like I'm only 23.
You're
And
younger than me.
yeah, I'm only 23, but I've been playing 40k since I was about 12 or 13. So,
Yeah.
roughly speaking, half my life, which I know
Yeah,
isn't
that's-
anything major, but for me it's majorly significant. Like, this
Oh,
is
yeah.
something I love, and I don't want it to I hate watching it be, for lack of a better word, molested and violated so often. And what's worse, it's often done by the very company that produces it, and it's sad to watch it happen. Like, I that's why I will never blame anybody for their morale being struck and torn to shreds and just completely walking away. Like, I'm at that point where the most I can offer people is, hey, if you know, maybe try and find a local community that plays an older edition and get a 3D printer, 3D print what models you want for things that you want to put together, and play away from the company and don't attach yourself to anything new that they produce. But at the same time, if people just still can't separate how it, like, I understand. I understand why people just can't separate what the company's doing from how they engage in the hobby. I get it. And if it just depresses you, even if you do find those pocket communities and you just can't separate from it, again, I get it. Just selling your minis and finding something new.
You feel the same way I felt when Eternal Crusade started being playable. I could see the writing on the wall with that. And, well, a lot of people kept going, hoping to get better, and I could just feel there was something wrong. But when it comes to stuff like this, either dies out when it's popular, or it lives long enough to tear itself apart.
I'd say that's pretty true. I mean,
Hope we can pick up the pieces.
Hopefully. I mean, that's the beauty of a hobby like this. Again, trying to find the ray of hope here. With a hobby like 40k or like Bolt Action or anything else like this, once you buy the minis, once you have the stuff, the company can't tell you what you have to accept and what you can. Like, if you don't want to accept the new lore that they've been adding, don't. Your headcanon is yours to make and yours to run with, and I'd say stick with it if you can.
Oh, yeah. And I could see them in ways winning back some of the support if they did things like, say, make a virtual tabletop and put a little code with each box that you buy that gives you your army digitally, so you can play against people across the world without having to use third-party tools. At least help build a community in ways like that would go a long way.
Just personally, I don't want that. Like, for me, I don't want 40k to be literally turned into a video game. Not like that, anyway. Like, obviously, I like 40k video games, but what I mean is, I like collecting miniatures. Like, I like assembling them and putting glue on them.
I would make it completely a part of having like, when you go and buy a little set of Space Marines, have a little barcode that gives you a digital for like a tabletop. So you can have that for, like, where I live, I have to go maybe 2 miles to be able to play a game if I wanted to. I live in the middle of nowhere. So if I did collect an army, spend all the time to paint and get them ready and go out, it'd be a 2-hour drive there, a 4-hour game, and a 2-hour drive back. That's a whole day.
I have to travel an hour and a half to the nearest tournament type location or hobby shop. I live in the woods, so
yeah,
I know how you feel.
Yeah.
Again,
and the community's been beaten over the years. So I can remember Dawn of War, the modding scene, when it fell apart, and I was kind of outside of the community when that stuff was going on, so I don't really know who went after who stole from who, but I know it was a he said, she said moment, and I stepped away from Dawn of War and haven't played the game since, and I wish I could play Dawn of War. But
are you talking about the original or 3?
Yeah, Dawn of War 1. with
Yeah, it's still
Ultimate
good.
Apocalypse when that fell apart.
Yeah.
I'd love an update of that just to get it into modern day fixes.
That would be nice. And a friend of mine works on a mod team for Dawn of War. I can't remember what mod it was though. Was it Ultimate Apocalypse? I don't know. I'll have to ask him.
Yeah, it was the mod for several years, but when that fell apart, I stepped away. And, well, I haven't played much Warhammer content besides maybe Dawn of War 2, Last Stand a little bit, and a bit of Total War Warhammer.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate it. I got one last caller, and then I'm gonna wrap up.
All right.
Thanks, man. Not gonna lie, I'm getting more doomer as we go. Aish. Shatan. How are you?
Hello. I'm fine.
I'm glad you're doing fine. So, what do you think about the Firstborn Marines getting nuked?
I hate that I could instantly say, fuck. It's so damn stupid when I'm right. Because it was my first impulse when Primaris were released. They're gonna squad the OGs. And here we are. All what's left is the Tactical, the Devaster, Centurions, Vanguard.
And nobody plays Centurions.
Not since Graf doesn't take vehicles apart with 2 penetrating hits anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, that was massacre time. Centurions everywhere. No we, but Centurions. Oh, 6th was a debacle. But a funny one.
I mean, for me, like, the assault squads is definitely like all of these are major like removals. But for me, again, like I mentioned a couple times in the stream, the 2 pillars of any army are its melee and ranged infantry, and the assault squads were half of that puzzle. Now we just got the tactical, so now you definitely can't play Firstborn Marines. Like, it's just not a thing you can do.
It's not a thing you can do, and the replacement Marines gonna be 1 option, jump packs, and you can not take them without the jump pack Marines, like the Assault Squad, which had every option in box except a power maul for the Sergeant. They hate multi-part kits, with leftover bits to build a tactical into another squad. They hate it.
They do. Very clearly.
And another major hit is the command squad is gone.
Yes.
1 box and able to build 3 different characters, or battle squad with every option again. The squad was missing hammer, correct? But you had and the power fist. Those 2 missing, but every special weapon except the Graf, because old sprue before Graf weapons came into the game. But besides that, again, 1 box, and you could build 3 squads with it.
Yeah, and if you can build multiple variations of things and keep the bits and stuff, that limits the number of times you buy that box.
Or you buy the box multiple times because there's a 1 bit. You need 4 squad 5 times because you've decided, I want chain halberds. And take the banners, the pole of the banner as space. But again, they don't want to make money.
It doesn't feel like it right now. I mean, again, like, for me, I kind of go back to this. Again, thank you to my friend Nathan X2000 for pointing it out, but I just don't understand why they didn't make these stuff made to order. Like, I get if they're underselling, but they still were selling. Like, it's not like they weren't making any sales on these. I highly doubt nobody was buying the Assault Squads or the Ironclad Dreadnought. They were still making sales. They were just making very few. So why not? You still have the molds. You still have the old designs. Just make them make to order. I just don't understand why they didn't do that. Like, removing them entirely just feels so shitty.
It does feel shitty, and if you look at the timing of the removal, it overlaps with the new logistics centrum they built. They started 21st this month to say, from now on, orders may be delayed or cancelled because the new logistics centrum. And they take the time and clear the whole house. Everything they have left, if it's gone, it's gone. Because we have seen before that you demand stuff, you don't get it. You can't order it. It's out of stock for ages. It's not available. You can't get it via mail order. You can't get it in the stores. The stores don't get it because they print so much new shit and don't come up with time to build old stuff. So sort it out, stock up on the new stuff, start anew, and old stuff gone. Who cares? Business. Sounds shitty, is shitty, but that's business.
Yep.
And I have to say, the timing is grandiose. I started to be active again in an old online board, a forum I'm part of. And we have a challenge. Every week we paint, build, or do some background for our armies. And I decided, hey, time to finish my reserve tactical company. The internet was gone for 2 seconds because the stream was also loading.
Oh, okay. Might have. That might be on my end. Sorry. Yeah.
But yeah, funny timing, shitty feeling. I was right. I was right. And I hate that there are people who celebrate this shit.
Yeah, I thankfully I haven't seen it today. I haven't seen anybody celebrating the removal of these. I'm lucky I haven't seen it. It would make me feel worse. But I'm trying to avoid being doomerish about it, but it really feels so hollow watching all these classic models go away and get eradicated, replaced by Primaris. It'd be one thing if they were. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, if you think that's bad, I just for funsies looked also at portals like eBay and other marketplaces. There are people who literally, it feels like they gift away their arms. Because as I said, timing perfect because I wanted to finish my bike company, and I just looked up. There's one who sells an entire Space Marine army, and the prices are so fucking low. You could get 3 attack bikes for $25 instead of 35 per one as its original price. That's sad to see, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's not even a third of the price. Not even. Some hearts are broke. That's sure. That's damn sure. And sad to see.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate it. You were my final guest today, so I'm gonna wrap up. But thank you.
Yeah. You have a good night.
You too, man.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye. Well, guys, that's it from me. I'm trying to think of like a positive note to fill in. I mean, I'm working on Warglaive. That's still underway. The first comic has a couple pages all said and done. Man, I don't know. Trying not to feel so hollow about it, but hopefully, at the very least, you know, we as a community, we can come together and put some games together of older editions. And again, 3D printing, I'm sure people are going to put up like rescans of all the models that they're getting rid of, and I can't see how anyone who's like a shill for GW can think that's